What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Allie, and also joined by a special guest of ours, a friend of the family and fellow Empire Sports Media writer, podcast co-host, Will Cohen, hosts Fireside Rangers. If you're not already subscribed to Fireside Rangers, better mosey on over there and subscribe. But today, we are not talking New York Rangers. We are talking the 4-8 New York Giants, how bad they've been this season, how they've been better recently, how we are excited to watch Tommy Cutlets continue to ball out, and how we are afraid for what might occur in this upcoming offseason. We're going to talk about all that, talk about the upcoming Packers game, everything else in between right here on this live stream. So make sure to like if you do enjoy the live stream, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our uploads and other live streams. But without further ado, Allie, I'll start off with you. How are you doing, and how are you feeling going into this primetime Monday Night Football matchup?
Well, I'm doing good now. I won't be doing so good on Monday. I actually am kind of annoyed that we have another primetime game. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm kind of excited that it's against the Packers, just because anybody who knows me, I used to really love the Packers because I used to love Aaron Rodgers. But it's a fun matchup for me. But Will, how are you doing today?
The Yankees are gonna get Juan Soto, so I've been really happy about that. JMU is I go to JMU. We're gonna get a head coach. So this week has been really good. And then on this Monday, I'm gonna have to watch the Giants get embarrassed on national television for another time this season. I don't know. Haven't been very happy with them this season, but it's been like that for most of my life. So nothing new.
A real statement. Such a real statement. How are you doing, Anthony?
You go through the difficult years so that the good years, the wins, feel all that much better. I'm doing great. Hit the meanest parlay of my life this past weekend. Put down the $1 every NFL game bet, and it cashed in at a very high amount because I predicted every single NFL game this weekend. And then I double dipped on Monday Night Football, and once again I hit big. So I'm doing tremendous, and I'm looking forward to that ugly Thursday Night Football matchup because I'm gonna bet like a degenerate on that, and I'm feeling confident going into it because this hot streak can end quick.
Not letting people tell your bets should be a crime, because how many times have I asked you for opinions on pick'ems? What are you betting today? And you just kind of decided to leave me out on this money-making journey, and I'm kind of offended by it.
Wow.
So to be fair, I made this bet in a matter of about 2 minutes while sitting at a Chili's with my friend and his family, and it was the most unserious thing that I've ever done in my life. It was a joke to us, and it hit big. So there was no way to plan for this. My Monday night bets had a lot more thought into them, so you could probably criticize me for not sharing those. But I don't share my bets. I like to take all the winnings for myself. I'm selfish.
I used to get your bets.
I have zero shame about it. No more. No more sharing. Now that I'm actually good at betting, no more. I'm taking all the winnings for myself. And best believe I'm betting big on Tommy Cutlets on Monday night. I will not be betting for the Giants. Maybe with the spread. We'll see. But I'll definitely be betting on Tommy Cutlets. So let's talk about Tommy Cutlets. Allie, it's been a while. I know back in the preseason, we did a couple episodes talking about the quarterbacks, talking about Tyrod Taylor, who I am a big fan of, and that should be made abundantly clear for anybody who's going to criticize me for wanting Tommy DeVito to continue to be the starter. I love both of those players, but right now I just feel like you got to roll with the hot hand, and that's the guy on the 2-game winning streak, and that man's name is Tommy DeVito. So how are you feeling about Tommy DeVito? What have you seen from him? Where can he improve? What's he done really well? And how are you feeling about him leading the charge for the rest of the season?
Well, I'm excited he's starting. I was one of the people who thought that it was kind of crazy that they were considering starting Tyrod over him. Not because I don't like Tyrod. I feel like this season he kind of made me a little bit of a fan. I wouldn't say 100% of a fan, but I just feel like it's smarter to stick with Tommy DeVito because, like you said, he's on that 2-game winning streak. And to be fair, I think the offense just needs stability. They've gone through so many offensive lines. You have Daniel Jones for some of the games. Daniel Jones goes down. Tyrod Taylor's in. Tyrod Taylor goes down. Then Daniel Jones comes back. Then Daniel Jones goes down again. I feel like they haven't been able to actually keep their rhythm. And I feel like with Tommy DeVito, the rhythm is there. It's building. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect offense. I feel like he still holds on to the ball for too long. He still takes some of those sacks, but he'll take a sack and then throw a beautiful ball down the field, which is what I like to see. So I am excited to see him moving forward. I think seeing him against the Packers might be a crucial game just because it's a harder opponent for him. I feel like the opponents in the past 2 games have been a little easier, but I don't know. I'm excited that he's still playing. I love Tommy DeVito. Been a fan since the preseason. I actually was wanting him to be the backup over Tyrod, but we already know that. But Will, what are your thoughts on Tommy DeVito?
I like Tommy DeVito. I was actually there for his first game. I was at that Jets game. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, drove up to MetLife Stadium, had to sit in the pouring rain with my girlfriend's dad, who's a Jets fan. He was clowning me the entire game. Tommy DeVito obviously comes in after Tyrod gets hurt. It was a boring game. I hated it, but he has immensely improved this season. I mean, I was shocked that he even won 2 games. I don't care if it was against the Commanders and and the Patriots, but he's won 2 games. It's better than anyone else can say. I mean, he's somewhat turning the Giants season around. People think that they have a chance to make the playoffs. I don't think they do, but he's definitely made a huge improvement this year, and I'm very happy for him. And hopefully, he is the backup going into next year. I think he deserves it.
I think so as well. However, there's a good chance that Daniel Jones is the backup going into next year, and that's if God is willing to make my life better. Then he will be the backup to a rookie quarterback. We won't dive into that just yet. We'll wait until there's more people in the chat and watching the stream before we start talking about the future of the quarterback position. But right now, I just want to kind of preview this upcoming Packers game. I'm sure you guys watched Sunday Night Football, Green Bay versus Kansas City. Packers came out on top. It was a really impressive performance from Jordan Love. I mean, definitely the best of his career. Looked like a true franchise quarterback. Probably the first time that he's really looked like a franchise quarterback. He's looked like a good starter for the past several weeks, and he's had his on and off moments. But this was that breakout, I'm the man game for Jordan Love. And so now the Giants are catching the Packers just at the wrong time, right? We thought, coming out of the bye week, we'll be well rested, go up against a struggling Packers team. Not the case. This Packers team is not struggling. They're hotter than ever. So what are we looking at here going into this game, Allie? Like, what are you keying in on, whether it's Jordan Love, whether it's, potentially a strong rushing attack from the Giants? Green Bay let up over 100 yards to Isaiah Pacheco last week. So there's definitely some matchups to exploit, but overall, it's probably going to be a tough matchup for the New York Giants. Again, Packers are red hot, but how are you feeling going into this game?
Well, number one on my list, I think Saquon Barkley needs to be utilized a ton in this game. I feel all season, not just last week against the Chiefs. The Packers have been terrible when it comes to defending the run, and I feel like Saquon Barkley has been really quiet almost. The only time you really saw a lot coming out of Saquon Barkley is when they were using him more in the receiving game, not necessarily as a running back, and that has partially to do with the fact that our offensive line is atrocious and they suck and they can't block for him for the life of them. But this is the perfect game to do it because their defense, again, sucks when it comes to defending the run. And we have one of the best running backs in the league. So use him. I don't know why they are not using him. But on the other side of the ball, everyone is talking about Jordan Love, but I think we kind of have to talk about their receivers just a little bit. The Green Bay Packers, they're a young team. Their receivers are mostly rookies, second-year players. They're still young, and they feel like they needed time to gain momentum with each other, and they have it. I think Jayden Reed is going to be a big one going into the matchup with the Giants. I feel like he is someone our defense has to worry about, but that is who I'm looking at. What about you, Will?
I actually saw something from you, Allie, earlier today. I think the Packers have let up 132 yards per game this year on the ground. So, I mean, the Giants have to utilize Saquon Barkley. And like you said, they haven't really been doing that a lot on the ground this year. He's been mostly been used in the rushing game. So definitely got to attack the ground, get Jaylen Hyatt the ball. He's been a star these past couple weeks. I love that kid a lot. Just got to get the ball in his hands. He's a playmaker. On the other side of the ball, Jordan Love, I mean, that kid's been playing great these past couple weeks. He finally looks like the player, the quarterback, the Packers drafted when they did in 2020. It looks like he's breaking out finally, and I think he's going to have another really good game.
Yeah, probably. I like that you mentioned Jayden Reed, Allie. Jayden Reed is a player that I was pretty high on going into the season. He's definitely an exciting talent for them. He's very versatile. They use him as a receiver. They use him as a rusher as well. He gets a lot of handoffs and different end rounds and is utilized in all their different packages. So they have a pretty dynamic offense. It's kind of interesting that going into this offseason, the whole narrative was Aaron Rodgers has to leave because they haven't given him enough help. And then you watch this Green Bay Packers offense and they just have playmaker after playmaker for Jordan Love. So some say that Aaron Rodgers might have been the problem in Green Bay after all. But it is looking, and I will say there's a lot that can buy into that narrative based on what we're seeing across MetLife Stadium with the New York Jets. But I will say this Packers team is looking good. A.J. Dillon as well, really good running back, and good as a receiver as well as good in the receiving game. And the Giants are going to have their hands full going into this matchup. But let's talk about some of the standout players through this portion of the season. You know, we've got a couple guys who are leading some Pro Bowl votes. Jamie Gillan, the punter, which bewilders me because I think he's a bad punter, if anything.
Me too. I hate Jamie Gillan.
I just don't understand it. And so he's leading NFC Pro Bowl votes somehow, some way. Dexter Lawrence isn't ranking in the Pro Bowl votes somehow.
Neither is Saquon.
Which is crazy to me. That makes a little more sense to me. Kayvon Thibodeau's up there. He deserves to be. And then there's one other person. Who else is up there? I don't remember.
It's Kayvon. I think it's just actually
Kayvon Gillan, and there's one other person. Don't remember who. Allie's on it. She'll let us know. But Will, let's talk about Kayvon. How are you feeling about Kayvon this season?
You know, going into this season and even when the season started, you know, the first couple games, everyone was saying, oh, Kayvon Thibodeau's a bust. Kayvon Thibodeau's a bust. And then he had, you know, a 2-sack game against the Seahawks and kind of took off from there. And now he has 11. It's the first time Wink Martindale has had a double-digit sack member in his defense because his defense usually doesn't. You know, edge rushers usually don't do good aren't high sack guys in the system. But he has been so good this year. I'm you know, not a complete turnaround from last year because, you know, last year we thought the same thing was going to happen. He was going to break out at some point. He was getting the pressures. He was getting held constantly. He was getting sacks. I mean, he did only have 4, but at the end of the year, he was a monster on the field, and now he finally broke out, and a lot of the haters are eating their words. So, Allie, what do you have to say about Kayvon Thibodeau?
I love Kayvon. I am the Thibodeau enthusiast. I thought anyone who is calling him a bust honestly is just stupid and they have no idea what they're watching. And I still see some people saying it, oh, he's not a game changer, he's not a game wrecker. I need to see him play without Dexter Lawrence. I need to see him play without Azeez Ojulari, which was such a weird comment for me because Azeez, when has he really played, to be fair? And we saw what Kayvon could do without Dexter Lawrence in the lineup in the last game. And I thought Kayvon did a pretty good job. Like you said, 11 sacks on the year. I actually did a deep dive on Wink and his past defenders. I think whenever he had a leading sack, however the hell you say it, but they only averaged around 6 or 7 sacks. That's as much as his sack leaders have averaged, and Kayvon is set to double that. So I'm excited. And the third one is Bobby Okereke, who is well deserved to be in the Pro Bowl as well. But
yeah, that's Anthony, what Kenny G. Shout out Kenny G. Kenny G just mentioned that Bobby O is the other member of the Pro Bowl voting who's ranking for the New York Giants. I want to talk about Saquon Barkley because you just mentioned that he's not ranking, and it sounded like you thought that he should be. But that's crazy to me that you actually think that Saquon Barkley in the season that he's having is Pro Bowl worthy. So let me hear the argument behind why he deserves to be in the Pro Bowl.
Okay, not an argument as to why he deserves it. To be fair, I feel like he's having a bad season and it's not really his fault. Like I said, the offensive line is not giving him the opportunity to even run. Even though I know your thoughts on Saquon Barkley, I am not as impressed with him, but the narrative going around the league is that he's one of the best running backs, and I feel like people always ride or die for Saquon Barkley, so it's just kind of confusing to me that nobody is voting this year, even though everyone says that we should have paid him, that he is undoubtedly our best player. If that's how you feel about him, why are you not voting for him? That's because
he's not undoubtedly our best player.
Yeah,
that's
Andrew
Dexter
Thomas
Lawrence.
Is our best player,
or Andrew Thomas. You can go Dexy or Andrew, but it's definitely not Saquon Barkley. And I don't think that the narrative. I don't think the narrative around the league is that Saquon Barkley is the best player or one of the best players on the Giants. I think it was 2 years ago, but
going into the season, that was the whole thing, especially when Daniel Jones got paid. It was he didn't deserve to get paid. It should have been Saquon Barkley. He is undoubtedly their best offensive player. I remember reading that. That's what people were saying.
Building a narrative to try and discredit what Daniel Jones did last season, and that's the angle that they chose to take was to side with Saquon Barkley. They tried to pit the two guys against each other, which was never fair. It's two different positions. It's apples to oranges. The Daniel Jones contract is something else entirely that we could discuss for a whole extra 30 minutes, but we won't. But Saquon Barkley, let's face it, Does he deserve to get paid? Yes.
No.
Is he still a great player?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No.
Does he deserve to get paid as much as he wants to?
No.
That's no. Does he deserve to be considered a top 3 to 5 running back in the NFL? No. He doesn't do what he used to do. And I think that, yes, he's still a great player, but what he used to be and what he used to be able to do, he's definitely lost a step. And I know that a lot of Giants fans push back on that and they say, wow, look at that run. And you try to tell me Saquon Barkley lost a step. Yes, I will try to tell you that. I remember back in 2018, his rookie season, that game against the Panthers, when Luke Kuechly met him in the hole and he hit a spin move, then hit another spin move around, who was it, Shaq Lawson, I think, and then took up the sideline for 30 yards. Saquon Barkley in 2023 can't even dream of doing that. It's not possible. He doesn't move the same way that he used to. So I love Saquon Barkley. I still appreciate who he is as a person and how he leads the New York Giants and how he's always game ready to put up 30 rushes if he has to. Like, he's willing to grind and be that workhorse for the Giants, whether he should be or not. Again, because of his playing style is another debate. So I appreciate him. He's important to the team, but he isn't what he used to be, and he wants to get paid like what he used to be. So I think that as the season has gone on, the narrative of him being a top player on the New York Giants is a little bit stale, and him deserving this big contract or being a Pro Bowl level player, again, very stale. So still, I think that he deserves to have a place on this team in the future, but I think, the Giants made the right decision not giving him that long-term contract, in my opinion. I think they made the wrong decision with Daniel Jones. I had the wrong opinion. I thought that they made the right decision at the time. I'm going to walk back on that one, admit that I was wrong. But
so what do you want
Saquon
them
Barkley,
to do with Saquon?
Trade him.
I've been an advocate for trading him probably for 3 seasons just in privacy because I don't want to hear feedback from Giants fans who watch the channel. So I don't say it out loud. For the last 3 years, I've been like, yeah, pay Saquon. But then I talk to my friends out off of the channel and I say, oh my God, I wish that they would trade Saquon. But so now I'm just going to come out of the closet, so to speak, and say, yes, I would like the New York Giants to trade Saquon Barkley. I think that they were crazy to not do it at this deadline when they decided to be sellers and get rid of Leonard Williams and indicate that they were going for this rebuild and accumulating capital. If they wanted a second-round pick for Leonard and they got it, they probably could have gotten a second-round pick for Saquon Barkley. And then you're talking about 5 selections inside the top 75. And if you are looking for a quarterback, that is how you get it. It's not about having the highest overall draft pick. It's about having enough draft capital to trade up and get the highest overall draft pick. So Saquon Barkley could have resulted in a Drake May or Caleb Williams. That's the big difference. But I guess I'll just ask you, Allie, what do you want to do with Saquon Barkley? You seem to be the advocate, like as if he's still the best thing since sliced bread here, but I think it's fair enough to say he's stale breadcrumbs at this point.
No, because you remember I told you this before the season started. I was fine with trading Saquon Barkley. I was fine with moving on from Saquon Barkley just because if you look at last season, I didn't think he was our whole offense. I do feel like we became more of a passing team, at least towards the second half of that season. And I do feel like running backs they come they come as fast as they go is like the best way to put it. And I feel like if you're not Christian McCaffrey, you are replaceable. That is kind of how I look at running backs. Let's see. Do you think he could be what he used to be in a different team? Probably, because Giants players seem to take off when they're on other teams. I don't know. You don't think so?
I don't think
ACL tear, knee sprain, ankle sprain. No, he just can't be. And that's the nature of the running back position. Well, I'm sure you have plenty to say.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. There was a run last year in the wild card game against the Vikings where his breakaway speed was so slow. Like you said, in 2018 he would have housed it, but he was tackled. He got caught up to. He's not what he used to be. He doesn't have the speed. He's just injuries on top of injuries. He got injured this season, and I made the point to people. Well, I usually don't talk about the Giants on Twitter a lot, but I make the point to people that that's why you don't pay him, because he already got injured once this season. I think there was reports that he turned down a 4-year, $16 million contract, and he's like, I'm not going to reset the market. But that's exactly what he was going to do. He wanted to reset the market. So you contradicted yourself. One, you think you deserve more money when you don't. Like, the Giants have to do everything they can to get rid of him. I agree with you, Anthony. They should have gotten rid of him at the trade deadline. I'm a little bit shocked that they didn't. But the Giants have to do everything in their power to get rid of him. And I was a huge Saquon Barkley fan when he got drafted, but they already drafted his replacement with Eric Gray. Just like start him, I guess. Ride with him. It's fine.
Okay, I think you might have taken the narrative a little too far. Like
No,
I'm a big Eric Gray guy, but to say that he's a Saquon Barkley replacement is definitely hyperbolic.
him and
in my
Matt
opinion.
Breida are the future.
Matt Breida?
I don't know.
Hey, throw Blake
don't know.
Corum in there. You get 3.
I do think that the Giants should consider drafting a running back, but what I will say is so what you mentioned there, Will, about his injury that he had, it didn't matter that much to Giants fans because he's on this 1-year contract. But could you imagine if he signed that 3-year, $36 to $42 million deal, and then he got injured for those 3 or 4 games that he was out for? Giants fans would have just decimated Joe Shane the same way that they're decimating them for the Daniel Jones contract. Right? Daniel Jones is out, and now everybody's like, look, he's an injury-prone quarterback. He's been injured before. You made this choice to pay him. You screwed up. But nobody said that about Saquon Barkley because he only signed that 1-year deal. But imagine if they did sign him to the long-term extension. And here's the thing. He's a running back. The injury was almost a guarantee, and him getting injured again in the future is a guaranteed. It is guaranteed. You know, he's a running back. He's going to get injured. So I just think the concept of paying this guy an extreme amount of money. I even will point to Jonathan Taylor. The Colts really tried to stand on their business and not pay him, and then they eventually caved, and he immediately got injured. It's the running back position. You don't pay it. It's stupid. It is the best way to screw over your salary cap space and ruin your roster building. So, in my opinion, no, Cameron, to answer your question, I don't think he could be what he used to be on a different team. Yes, scheme matters. Talent around you matters for a running back. However, injuries also matter. Wear and tear definitely matters. He's a running back with a lot of mileage. The Giants asked him to take 30 carries in, I think, 3 games last season. So, and even this previous game against the Patriots going into the bye, he had, 12 carries? You would think he would be able to take a larger load with a third-string quarterback on the field, but instead he's probably too gassed by week 14 because he's getting all these touches throughout the early portion of the season. So he's getting 12 carries. I don't know. I just don't think that he's able to uphold that full mileage and workload that he used to. He's just not the same player, in my opinion. Allie, what's your pushback? What is the moaning and groaning?
Because everyone is underestimating the Patriots is their defense. Yes, their team is horrible, but even Austin Eckler did horrible, and that's Austin Eckler. So I feel like that could also have played a part into his low touches as far as last week goes. But
maybe low yards per carry, but not low touches. That's a game plan decision to not give him the ball. If he wasn't running it effectively, sure, yeah, I understand, but he was running it just fine. He just barely touched the ball. He was never part of the game plan. They just chose not to run their offense through Saquon Barkley. They consciously chose to run it through Tommy DeVito. When weeks ago against the Jets, that game that Will was at, they consciously chose to take the ball completely out of Tommy DeVito's hands and put it in the hands of Saquon Barkley versus a really good New York Jets defense. So there's clearly a difference here, in my opinion, of Saquon Barkley just not being fully healthy, and that's fine. It's understandable. He's a running back who's been carrying this offense throughout the season. So, but let's talk more about the offense, different aspects of it. Let's talk about the receiving game. Will, you mentioned Jaylen Hyatt earlier. Let's talk about him because he's looked really good. He's looked a lot better now that he has a quarterback that's willing to take chances downfield throwing to him. So how are you feeling about Jaylen Hyatt, Will? You know, what are you seeing from him that you really like? And maybe where do you think that he could probably improve some of his game?
I just love his speed. Like, he's such a, the Giants haven't had just a deep, guy that can just go down the field every single play like he does, since OBJ. That's what they've been missing as a playmaker. And, I was really happy when we drafted him in the 3rd round because I thought he was going to go in the 2nd, but getting him in the 3rd was nuts. And, Tommy DeVito just chucking it up there just shows how much he trusts him and how good of a wide receiver he is. I think what he needs to do is kind of expand his route tree a little more, but he was kind of a one-trick pony in college, and that's probably what he's going to be. He's a deep threat guy, and that's fine, but I think his route tree is something he could improve on.
I would agree with that. I would say over at Tennessee, he was He ran a pretty diverse route tree in terms of running all three levels of the field. The main problem with Jaylen Hyatt was the fact that they only played him in the slot and they didn't play him outside enough, so he never faced press coverage. And even in the NFL, you'll face some sort of press coverage even from the slot because everybody's so quick and so physical. And I think that's probably the biggest learning curve for him. But what I will say is a few of the plays that he's made this season have happened on the outside. So we're already seeing he has the ability to beat those press coverages at times, and he's already improving, developing, expanding his route tree, and getting better. And I think that's something to be encouraged by. But Allie, how are you feeling about Jaylen Hyatt? What are you seeing from him?
Well, I actually read something in the New York Post the other day when he was speaking on Tommy DeVito, which I think is why we're seeing more Jaylen Hyatt now. He was talking about how confident DeVito is and that he doesn't really take any pregame snaps, but that when he goes on the field, he'll take it and he'll take that deep shot, and that's something that he's really feeding off of. So I guess the both of them kind of go together, at least in my head as of right now. So it's going to go back to what we mentioned earlier about why I wanted him to start and not Tyrod Taylor, just because we're finally seeing Hyatt get more involved. And I do think it has to do with DeVito being the quarterback because he will take those shots. It doesn't matter what part of the game it is. He just has the confidence, like, you know what, I'm going to throw it up to you and I'm going to trust you to make a play and I'm going to trust you to catch the ball. And I really think that Hyatt is feeding off of that. And so I'm excited to see how that can grow throughout the season. So
Pushing back on the Tyrod criticism, the game against the Washington Commanders, Tyrod got his downfield to Jaylen Hyatt. He hit him on the deep throws.
yes,
He also trusted him on a
yes, he
crucial
did.
fourth down across the middle of the field versus Buffalo, which Jaylen Hyatt came down with. I don't think that Tyrod Taylor is any reason why Jaylen Hyatt wasn't breaking out. I think Daniel Jones is the reason for that. And I think that as
I
long
was just
as
speaking now because we're seeing it like more consistently though.
Sure, yes, I'll agree with that, but I think that we've been seeing it more consistently ever since Tyrod Taylor took the chance on him in week 6. That's what I was trying
Okay.
to say.
Okay.
He took a couple shots to him. There was the one that didn't count versus the Buffalo Bills, the rolling left, that one. The one that he took that Jones didn't take, like comparatively speaking, like
Mm-hmm.
literally not trying to just send a stray shot at Daniel Jones here, but that was the play that everybody broke down and said, wow, Tyrod Taylor wants to get the ball to Jaylen Hyatt, because there was a similar play versus the Cardinals where Daniel Jones tucked it instead. I just think since that moment is when we've seen the increase of Jaylen Hyatt, and I honestly think that's spurred not by Tommy DeVito, not even by Jaylen Hyatt himself, but I think that's spurred by Tyrod Taylor. Was like, I'm in here, I'm an experienced veteran, I can tell who's good, and I'm going to get this ball to Jaylen Hyatt. And since then, the Giants have been like, okay, let's build around Jaylen Hyatt. So I actually think that Tyrod Taylor deserves a lot of credit for this Jaylen Hyatt breakout that we're seeing. And now we're seeing Tommy DeVito maximize it and really build on it. And that's something that we can also appreciate and really enjoy, because Tommy DeVito, the thing that I love about him is how cool, calm, and collected he is. I think that off the fields, like in the locker room and in conversation, everybody praises Daniel Jones for being this cool, calm, collected guy, and those things are true. But on the field, Tommy DeVito is that cool, calm, collected guy. Like, he stands there, takes hits. He takes a lot of sacks. Yes, that's part of the problem. But he's not afraid to stand in the pocket and rip it. And he doesn't care if he throws a pick or throws a bad pass. He's coming back the next play, making the same throw and hoping for a better result. And that's what I really appreciate about him. And I think that he's just this young kid who has nothing to lose, and he's playing like it. You know, when somebody's playing like they have something to lose, that's when they start playing scared. That's when they start playing poorly. But when they're playing like they have nothing to lose, that's when they start playing really good football. So before I get to Tudo Azuri's donation, Allie and Will, give your takes on, of course, Tommy DeVito and what you're seeing from him that's best. Will, let's start off with you.
I don't know. I just like how he's willing to just chuck a ball downfield. He has nothing to lose. Was an undrafted free agent, and he's just, like you say, he's maximizing Hyatt because he's just chucking the ball at them. He doesn't care. That's what I like about him.
Yeah, no, me too. He's playing fearless football, which is fun to see. He's not playing like he's in his head. He'll take a sack regardless of if the sack is caused by him or the offensive line. He'll take it, get back up, and I said this before, and he'll throw a beautiful deep ball right after. You could tell that it's not really messing with his head, which I like to see. Because other quarterbacks, when they're in a position, especially with this Giants team and just how horrible of a market, well, not horrible of a market, but how intense our fan base can be, I feel like he takes it. He's being embraced by the Giants fan base. He's being embraced by New York, and I feel like that's something that's pretty cool, and I feel like he's really taking his opportunity, and he's, I don't know, doing the most with it. So I'm proud to watch DeVito out there. I think that's like the best way to put it.
I'm definitely proud. He is definitely being embraced by Giants fans like myself and like Tuto Azori in particular, us Italian fans. We love Tommy DeVito. Tuto, thank you, grazie, for the donation. Much appreciated. I'm going to
Read
try
it.
and read as much of this as I can, but I can't read all of it. He says, salute everybody. He's participating, or for us participating in the conversation, and something about the Italian being capable. And I think he's talking about Tommy DeVito. So, Tudo, rate my Italian translation skills 1 to 10. I know it's probably on the lower half. I try my best. I don't know much Italian, just a
I
little
think you
bit.
did a good job. I have some
But
experience
definitely
reading Italian.
appreciate you stopping in, Tudo. Always happy to see you in here. And yeah, man, I know that you're loving Tommy DeVito. Tudo, comment down below about Tommy DeVito. I know that you're loving watching Tommy DeVito step up to the plate, make some big time plays for the New York Giants. All right, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk about the secondary. We've got some players who are really emerging. Deonte Banks, who's a player that's who I mocked draft to the New York Giants before the draft happened. That was the number one player that I wanted to see them draft. So I'm happy about it, and I'm happy with the way that he's playing so far. I think that he's been pretty good this season. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not. But he's a rookie cornerback dealing with a lot of crappy play around him, in my opinion. I think that's really affecting his PFF grades and all that other crap that people use to say that he's not a great player. But I like Deonte Banks. I like Cordell Flott. I think Trey Hawkins has potential. Jason Pinnock is playing great. Xavier McKinney. So let's talk about the secondary. Well, again, I'll start with you. First, I will say, Tudo said I did a good job. So I'm going to take that. That's my biggest dub of the night. So I'm just going to pat myself on the back. But Will, how are you feeling about the Giants secondary?
I thought coming into the year that it was their biggest question mark was the secondary. I'm really glad that they did draft Deonte Banks. I actually wanted Jordan Addison, and the pick before him, I actually got spoiled that he was going to the Vikings, but that made me sad. But then, we got Deonte Banks, and he's been playing really good. I think, he does have his moments. There's a couple times where he'll just, the pass interference against the Jets that game I was at, that wasn't, I don't know if that was really a pass interference, but you just can't take that late in the game. There's a little bit of rookie mistakes you can see in this game, but I think they threw him into the fire. They're having him cover wide receiver ones. CeeDee Lamb kind of cooked him, but I think that's good for a corner. A young corner has to go through the trials and tribulations. I mean, corners usually take long to develop anyway. They usually take a season or two to get adjusted, but I think he's done a really good job being thrown into the fire. Allie, what do you have to say about
Well, like you said, I also wanted Jordan Addison. I was really upset about that, but I'm not upset that we got Deonte Banks. I actually really love him. He's one of my favorites. I feel like he's been doing a great job, especially considering the receivers he's had to cover. He hasn't been perfect, like Anthony said, but I feel like he's only going to get better. He is one of our bright spots on the defense. And then going up to Cordell Flott, I actually really love Flott in the slot. He has been one that's been getting me super, super, super excited. Trey Hawkins, again, struggling a little more, but it's fine. Again, rookie mistakes, rookie growing pains. You're going to go through that, especially in the first season. And I feel like the defense as a whole is something we could be proud of moving forward. That's just my thought on that. Especially McKinney, I feel like he's been balling past few weeks, and he's gotten a lot of criticism, people saying he shouldn't get paid or that he doesn't deserve to be a captain, leadership, blah, 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 all that, whatever. I don't really care. I feel like he's been playing good football, and I really love McKinney. He's one of my favorite players. I hope he stays. I don't really think he will, but I see you making faces. What are your faces for, Anthony?
I was
Not a
connecting with
McKinney.
people on LinkedIn. I had nothing to say negatively about McKinney. I love Xavier McKinney. I've been a huge Xavier McKinney advocate since before he ever took a snap with the New York Giants. This is my guy. Like anybody who's been a long-term viewer of this channel knows McKinney is my guy. So obviously I want McKinney to stay. I think that Giants fans are way too critical of McKinney for things off the field that they don't understand or have full context over. I think that it's ridiculous how much criticism certain Giants players get for what's perceived to be outside of football. It honestly shocks me. Xavier McKinney is a damn good football player. And one of the things that we know is that safeties, more than probably any position in the defensive lineup, are dependent on those who play around them. And so when we're talking about guys like Landon Collins years ago, All-Pro 2016 season. 2017, they have him paired up with Curtis Riley. So out of nowhere, Landon Collins falls off a cliff and he's just the worst safety in the NFL. That's not because Landon Collins turned into a terrible player. It's because he was playing alongside a player who didn't even deserve a starting spot in the NFL. That's what it was, and that's what you see with safeties in the NFL. And in particular, again, I bring up these PFF grades because a lot of Giants fans on Twitter, they like to bring up, oh, his PFF grade drops from a 50 to a 30. It's still a failing grade. Do you guys understand what a PFF grade really entails? Do you know what it means? Have you ever read what, like, PFF grades? So yeah, Xavier McKinney's PFF grade was a 67 last year, but a 75 the year before, so he regressed. No, the talent around him regressed. There's a variance to those grades. I hate when Giants fans use PFF grades to justify whether or not a player should get a contract. Xavier McKinney does a lot in that locker room. He's a true leader in the locker room. Guys like Antoine Bethea that the Giants would choose to sign, these 40-year-old farts that mean nothing to this team, those are not leaders in the locker room. Those are not guys, oh, they need a mentor. Deonte Banks does not need some 35-year-old guy telling him what to do. He needs a 25-year-old guy like Xavier McKinney who can relate to him and help him grow and show him, like, hey, this is how I do it. You do it like this. That's what players like Deonte Banks need. So Xavier McKinney is not only valuable because he's young and has potential to grow, but because he's young and help others grow. And also, he is a good football player. He has abilities that most safeties don't have. That interception against the Patriots, few safeties in the NFL can make that play. The interception a couple years ago against the Raiders, the one against the Eagles, few players make those plays. He's just been playing in a defensive scheme that probably took him a lot of time to get used to, which Jason Pinnock just mentioned. It took him 10 weeks to get used to. So it's not just a Xavier McKinney thing. It's an everybody thing. And Xavier McKinney is just playing with players around him who, like Pinnock, wasn't used to the system, so wasn't playing well. And other guys around him also haven't been playing well, like an Adoree Jackson. The safety position is one of those where you can't just sit there and do your job. You have to do your job plus help other people do their jobs. So when Adoree Jackson's not doing his job, Xavier McKinney has to leave his job to help him do his job, which then impacts his PFF grade, makes it negative, and gives him more missed tackles, or, his stats show that he had more yards allowed in coverage. There's a lot more nuance to the conversation of the safety position than Giants fans seem to realize. So Xavier McKinney gets a lot of unnecessary criticism and flack, and I think it's bullshit. That's just how it is. Xavier McKinney is a damn good player. He deserves a contract extension. I like him. If I did make a face to anything you said, it was I had intrigue because you mentioned that the defensive side of the ball is the one that we should all be proud of and happy about. But if that's the case, why does Brian Daboll want to fire the defensive coordinator? That is beyond me, and that's what's making me question the head coaching leadership of this team. But that's a pretty deep rabbit hole that we could dive into and probably shouldn't. But, Will, you seem to agree with a lot of what I said. Let me hear a couple of your brief thoughts on Xavier McKinney there.
You know, I'm not going to lie. I thought that they could maximize his value and get picks for him, but he is a very good leader. I know he was the green dot before. I think it was 2 seasons before, obviously, Okereke took it over this year. But, the safety position, like you said, you have to do other people's jobs because you are the field general. Like, you see the field better than anyone else because you have a better, obviously, you're higher up on the field than anyone else. So, you got to take over people's jobs when they're not doing it. And, I do like Xavier McKinney. I thought when we drafted him in 2020, I thought it was a complete steal. I loved him a lot. And he's just a uber athletic guy. And I know a lot of Giants fans get on him because of the ATV accident he had last year, but they're human beings. Like, they're going to do, like, they're going to have, you're going to go out and have fun. Like, if you're vacationing, like, I get it. Like, as a fan, you're like, what the hell? Like, you're going to hate the guy, but they're human. Like, they're not just these robots that all they do is play football. They don't just train football every goddamn day. Like, they go out and do things. So I do like Xavier McKinney a lot, and he is a leader on this team. He's going to be great for Deonte Banks going in for his future. And yeah, he 100% gets a contract extension this offseason.
Everybody hates on Xavier McKinney for going ATV, and nobody says a word when Sterling Shepard's popping Molly at Jay-Z's parties and banging strippers over in Miami. Nobody cares then.
What did I miss in this?
First of all, also, when was that? Because I love Sterling Shepard. I feel like I'm involved in this everything.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares when all the wide receivers go down to Miami, start partying. Xavier McKinney goes ATV and hurts his hand. Oh no, end of the world.
Whatever. what I'm gonna piggyback on what you guys are saying about Xavier McKinney and the leadership. So me being a crazy fan, I kind of take what I can from social media because obviously I don't know these guys. We're not in the locker room. We don't know what's going on. But I do see a lot of interactions between him and Deontay Banks, and that makes me happy. I feel like you can see that he is a mentor to him. And yeah, that is what I have to say on that. I feel like Giants fans, they hate on McKinney for literally no reason. I feel like it all goes back to that one ATV accident. And I always say this whenever someone says, "Oh, he's not a good he's not a good leader in the locker room. Too many captains, not enough leaders," whatever that BS saying that they always say. These are captains that are voted on by the team. They voted him captain for a second year in a row, even after that accident happened. That shows you that that locker room does view him as a leader. And I feel like Giants fans just completely forget that that happened. They feel like what coaches pick the captains. No, these are voted on by the team. They want him to be their captain. He's their captain. That's it. But I don't know. Giants fans give me headaches on half of their takes on certain players because, again, like you said, Will, they can't have lives. They can't have a life outside of being a Giants football player because I don't know. You just need to live, breathe, and eat Giants football. That's it.
I've
Yeah, to
noticed
be
that with
fair-
athletes a lot, actually.
Mhm.
Well, athletes are always criticized for everything. They're just put under a microscope they don't deserve it. And what I will say, though, Derby Dreamin says safeties don't help win Super Bowls, let them walk, not because of the antics. That's a take I can understand and get behind. That is more fair than saying, oh, he went ATV and don't pay him. Saying that the safety position is devalued, that's why you shouldn't pay him. That's an argument that I can listen to. That's one that I could get behind. But saying that he doesn't deserve to be paid because he injured his hand on vacation in Cabo, Mexico, that's stupid. But I got to go back up to Tudo. Once again, Tudo, thank you for another donation. Much appreciated. Tony, we're ready to suit up against boys, losers in any position, defensive end, edge rusher, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. All we need is a thumbs down signal from the defensive sidelines to the flatline somebody and keep the hospital bills all day. Absolutely, Tudo. You already know. I'm in my flag football season right now. I'm the quarterback. I'm surgical out there. I'm tossing dimes on the run, off platform, from the pocket. Dime season all day long. You already know.
Put a highlight package together.
Yeah, I don't have any videos. Nobody's taking any videos yet. Well, actually, somebody took videos in the last game, but it hasn't been sent to me yet. So we'll see. Whenever I get them, I'll definitely
get you a spot. JMU needs a quarterback. I'll get you in the pocket.
I got this. I don't think I'm eligible anymore because I already graduated. So.
Nah, it's all right. I'll tell them we'll make a fake birth certificate. It's all right.
Let's do it. I'm all the way about it. But yeah, let's see. Derby Dreamin is pushing back on what Ali said. 10 captains is ridiculous. Come on, Max should be 6, 3 offense, 3 defense. I think there's an argument to make about it. I think that from the outside looking in, it does look a little crazy that there's 10 total captains. It doesn't feel as exclusive. That is a fifth of the roster. You know, that's quite a wide margin of players who are becoming captains. So I don't know. I would say I don't really know how we could debate that because we're not in the locker room and we don't know what the leadership is. But I think that ties into the overall larger conversation, which is Brian Daboll and the way he runs the team. Conversations about him being too lackadaisical at practice during training camp and that resulting in injuries during the regular season. There's a lot to talk about with Brian Daboll, and I think that's the main thing we're going to get to. But before we get to it, I got to respond to another Tudo comment. Juve versus Napoli Friday. I'm not looking forward to it. Tuto, I just don't even want to talk about it. I shouldn't have even acknowledged this comment. Not been the season that I hoped for. We are still the champions of Italy, but not for much longer. It's not going to repeat for Napoli. But all right, let's talk about Brian Daboll. I think it's good for us to talk about what we see from the second-year head coach 14 weeks into the regular season. Allie, there's a whole lot of conversations about the coordinator positions. There's a very real possibility that Daboll fires all 3 of his coordinators, but yet somehow survives and maintains his head coaching position, which sounds unheard of, sounds unreasonable, sounds like malpractice, but it seems to be the reality that we are living in. So, Allie, how are you feeling about Brian Daboll at this point in the season?
Well, I feel like he's been really disappointing, at least for me as a fan, because I loved Daboll. You know, this is our coach of the year the season prior. I do feel like the reports of him firing Wink don't make sense to me at all. If anything, the defense has been the best thing on the field every week. Yes, they may let up points. Yes, they may let up yards, but when you're on the field for half of the game, that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to get tired. They're going to feel defeated. But I do feel like the way Wink has been developing these players, the way the defense has been starting to mesh well together, that is something that is exciting. I feel like getting rid of Wink, again, makes zero sense to me. And Daboll, I just feel like, has had a weird way of managing the roster. I read something the other day about how they knew about Darren Waller's hamstring even before the season started, and yet they were like overworking him in training camp. He was basically there every snap when he could have just taken, some time back or some time away, not being used as much, and then to go into the season and not being able to play because that hamstring that you were dealing with since before the season started is now acting up because you were used so much in training camp. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't know why they would do that. If you knew he was dealing with that, why push him as hard in training camp? Now we don't have Darren Waller, and I was really excited about Darren Waller, and he's been so disappointing because he can't play. He hasn't been on the field. He can't play. And so that's just weird. Managing injuries, weird. I feel like I'm just confused by that whole thing, and I feel like that does go on Daboll, to be fair, because I don't know. That's just how I feel. But how about you, Will?
Will, I brought up Ryan Daboll earlier and called his leadership in some capacity into question, and I saw you make some really interesting faces. So I know that you're definitely a Brian Daboll supporter. To make things clear, I'm also a Brian Daboll supporter. I don't think that firing him should be an option. You got to maintain him. But even you, as another fellow Brian Daboll supporter, have to agree with me, I would assume, that it's weird for a head coach to fire all three of his coordinators and keep his job. One of the main things that a head coach has to do is hire his coordinators. So he failed at one of the main components of his job. Is that not like damning for the guy? Is that not like, oh my God, maybe you aren't the right head coach? Like maybe you're not good at this. Like I got to know your take on that, Will.
Yeah, I agree. I yeah, I love Brian Daboll, and I think that he is that. Okay, now I might contradict myself. I think he is the right coach for the New York Giants. I think there's a lot of things just going wrong this season, and you know, were they supposed to be a playoff team? I didn't think so. I thought they'd be in the hunt the entire year, but it's a lot worse than that now. So things in the locker room and in the building probably are going awry, and it is kind of crazy that he's gonna if he does end up firing all three of his coordinators and he keeps his job. Usually, the coach is going with them. It's not just the coach keeping his job. He's gonna hire three more guys, but I don't know if it's right to fire Wink. I think his defenses have been good the past 2 years. I mean, it's not like he's some Hall of Fame defensive coordinator, but like I don't know if you can necessarily fire him unless you're going after Leslie Frazier. Then I'm fine with it, I guess. But firing Kafka is good. I don't really like him. I don't like Thomas McCauley. I think he should. I thought he was going to get fired after the Lions preseason game, but obviously he didn't. I mean, I was completely shocked he kept his job, but I think it is very weird that he's going to fire all three of them if he does. But I'm questioning his leadership a little bit. But I'd like to see him with a real quarterback. We were not going to get Drake May like I hoped we were, but hopefully he gets a quarterback that he can work with and show that he's him.
I think Giants fans need to stop acting like the Drake May dream is dead, because it's really not.
It's dead.
No, we're in December. We're in December and the draft is in April and the combine is in March. You know what can happen in that time? You're sitting here talking about, I love Drake May. That's QB1 for me. And then once we get to March and we watch the combine unfold, the NFL teams might be like, you know what? Screw it. Screw Caleb. Screw Drake. Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix is number one. We don't know how the draft boards are going to shape out until we get to April. Like, legitimately, it's always an insane amount of variance between December and April. Like, think back to that 2018 draft when the Giants took Saquon Barkley. Sam Darnold went number 2. Who went number 1? Baker Mayfield. At this time of the season, Baker Mayfield was considered a third-round draft pick in December. He went first overall in that draft. So anything right now is not predetermined. Like, you can't talk about Drake May being the guy. You might think he's the top quarterback. I argue that he is. I would prefer to take the chance on him over Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is the better prospect, but he's the riskier prospect. And for the Giants, they could take a risk, but not that big of a risk. So for the Giants in particular, I think that they got to take the guy that fits Brian Daboll's mold better, and that's Drake May. So the Drake May dream, again, it's still alive. The Bears might end up with the first overall pick, and everybody's just assuming that they're going to replace Justin Fields. Not so fast. Go read up on your Chicago Bears. Go take a look at what Justin Fields has been doing this season. Justin Fields has been a really good quarterback this season. He's just been playing with a lot of bad talent around him. He's been injured. Yeah, the injuries are part of why they might want to replace him. Justin Fields is a damn good player. There's just a lot going on over in Chicago that's not conducive to a good quarterback environment. So that's the problem there. I want to dive back into the Daboll conversation, though. You put me on a tangent, Will. I hate you. Just kidding.
I love
Let's talk about – I love Drake May. Dude, like I'm a huge Drake May fan. Did the whole Twitter thread on him. Going to talk about him more on the channel. Like I'm a big Drake May guy. I'm a pretty big Caleb Williams guy in comparison to probably most Giants fans because they all hate him because of stupid reasons. But I love Caleb. I love Drake. I actually really like Jaden Daniels as well. There's a lot of good quarterback prospects. But I want to talk about this comment in particular from Vince G here. You can't scream and curse out grown men. It doesn't take long to build up resentment doing that. And obviously that's in regard to Brian Daboll, his outbursts, his temper tantrums, as I like to call them. I think that, we were kind of talking about leadership and, what we see from Daboll that's concerning. I will say that I don't remember which show or podcast, whatever it was that I was watching, but it had some NFL insider on it, and they built on the Wink Martindale thing. And they mentioned Wink Martindale throughout his entire NFL career has always been considered a very reserved, composed coach. He's not one of those guys that gets active on the sidelines, doesn't scream, doesn't lose his temper. So, and all of the coaches that he's worked for in the past have been the same way. And so what they were hearing is that Wink Martindale has a philosophy almost, has like a belief that he subscribes to. On the sidelines, you don't show emotion. Brian Daboll, it's not debatable. He shows too much emotion on the sidelines. He throws tablets, he screams at players, he curses at players, and it doesn't look good. We all give him this kind of like slack, and we kind of just give him a pass for it because we trust in Brian Daboll. But let's be honest, why would his coaching staff that's been in the NFL way longer than him trust in him for this behavior when they've seen it done the right way and win Super Bowls elsewhere? I don't know. I think that Vince is on to something there. I think that there's a good point to that. We heard a lot about Joe Judge before he got fired and how he would curse out players and how he would be way too hard on them for no reason and just try and be way too Belichickian, right? And Kelvin Benjamin left the team. Kelvin Benjamin shouldn't have been on the team. We all know that. He was a scrub anyway. But when he left the team, he was like, nobody in that locker room is buying into Joe Judge because all he does is stand there and curse at people, right? And now we're hearing similar things about Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll just kind of stands there on the sideline, screams curse words at people. Is this not reminiscent of Joe Judge? I hear nobody bringing this up, and nobody kind of uses this conversation tool of Joe Judge as a comparison. But is it not somewhat similar? Like, are there not comparisons that we can make? And that's just where I start to question Brian Daboll. Again, I believe in Brian Daboll. He doesn't deserve to be fired. I trust in him. He should be the head coach next season, get another year. But there are some similarities to Joe Judge that I see and that make me question his long-term leadership of this team. And I'm wondering if anybody else on this panel with me, Allie or Will, if you're kind of seeing where I'm coming from, feeling the same way as me. Allie, I'll start off with you. Brian Daboll, his temper tantrums, throwing a tablet at the feet of Daniel Jones, screaming what the F to Evan Neal as he walks off the sideline, decimating Tyrod Taylor after the error in Buffalo. Like, come on, these are all things that you don't want to see your head coach doing. How do you feel about just the antics of Brian Daboll?
I don't know. I feel like I kind of have an unpopular opinion. I do feel like he does have to keep his emotions in check, but I don't know. Obviously, I haven't played NFL football, but in the sports I have played, I actually have had really fiery coaches that would like break into me as well and like break into the team. I just feel like depending on the nature of the coach, sometimes it's just going to happen. Again, I feel like he does need to control his emotions, but I don't feel like him getting at the players is necessarily a bad thing. To be fair, I also like said what the F to Evan Neal after that play, to be fair, and I feel like we saw it last season. Daniel Jones threw an interception week 1, Brian Daboll getting in his face. Daniel Jones didn't throw another interception. Well, maybe later on in the season, but it wasn't as like stupid as it was in that first week 1 against the Titans. But I don't know. I agree he needs to keep it in check, but I'm also not one of the people that's gonna crucify him because he does that. Again, people have different coaching methods, and I feel like sometimes the players need to hear it. These are grown men, they can handle it. They're playing a sport. When you're playing a sport, you're gonna get tough love, you're gonna get tough criticism. That's just what it is, and I feel like I sound really heartless when I say that, but th that's what it is. You're gonna
No,
get cursed out, you do something stupid.
that aspect of it I understand and I get. Like, these are grown men, they can take a little bit of tough love, they can take criticism. That part of it I don't mind. But Brian Daboll throwing literal temper tantrums on the sideline, running
Yeah,
away from his duties, like he's not
yeah,
doing his job when he's standing on the sideline screaming at players, throwing things on the ground.
that's
When
true.
he's that's so we talk about, oh, he shouldn't have thrown that challenge flag. He shouldn't have called that timeout. These are things that I think that he would have kind of fixed if he wasn't so busy screaming at people. Like,
Yeah,
when you're angry and you're hot-headed and you're not thinking, it causes you not to think clearly. And that's my problem with Brian Daboll and the way that he behaves. It's not so much the Joe Judge thing. Like, I made the comparisons to Joe Judge because I think it's still warranted in some way.
yeah,
Again, we're not in the locker rooms. We don't understand the full context of everything. Joe Judge clearly lost the locker room because he was such a hard ass and a loser. Like, he was losing football games and he was judging people, and it was like the sinner throwing stones. So that was the Joe Judge problem. But with Brian Daboll, it's more just like, you make these dumb mental mistakes, but meanwhile you're on the sideline screaming at players for their mental mistakes. Like,
yeah.
are you totally focused? Are they totally
Mhm,
focused? Why aren't they totally focused? Maybe that's your fault. And also, you
mhm,
don't look totally focused. So I think that there's just a lot to dive into with Brian
yeah,
Daboll. It's not that, again, Evan Neal, he deserves to be screamed at. Like, he deserves to be cursed at. A lot of these players do. You know, they can take criticism and they can take getting cursed at. They're grown men. I agree
yeah,
with you on that aspect, Allie, but I just think that with Dable and his behavior, he doesn't look the part of a head coach a lot of the times. Like,
mhm,
even when we talk about fiery head coaches in the past, like even Belichick used to be really fiery back in the day. It wasn't like this, it was
yeah,
fiery at like a ref. Like, I hate to bring up Sirianni, but Sirianni screams at the refs, right? And he gets the calls. The Eagles get like every call, and we hate that because he screams at the refs. I've never seen him scream at his players, and they're 9-3, but they will
that's
scream.
true.
So that's like where I'm at with this. It's not that the players can't handle it; they can, but why is his attention so focused on tough love to the players and not,
I
on
can
his
agree on that.
duties?
Mhm.
I feel like
So
throwing the tablet at Daniel Jones is, like, eh, not the best place to do it just because you know the narrative that's gonna come out of that as well.
the
Oh
cameras are on you.
yeah, and you just like, boom, I'm gonna throw the tablet at my quarterback, and knowing that that's just gonna make headlines, that just causes distraction, so I do kind of agree with that. Like I said, he does need to keep his emotions in check, even though I'm not, like, crucifying for it, but that is something he has to work on. Because again, you can't be throwing stuff at your players on the sideline. That's just
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah. And now, Will, I want to get your take on it as well.
I when you look at coaches that have like are fired up, I like Tom Coughlin because he was that type of coach. He was always fired up, but he never yelled at his players. I mean, like there were stories that he would, but like you would never see it like during a game. Like you would never see him go up to Eli and throw throw anything, throw his headset at Eli or anything like that. Obviously, they didn't have tablets back then because it was before that time. But I think Daboll needs to keep his emotions in check. Like, yeah, you can get pissed off at a ref, but you can't just always get pissed off at your players. Sometimes it falls on you. You're the coach. You're the one getting them ready. Like, what do you think that they're just like you're at practice with them? Like, do you not
mhm,
watch practice? Like, are you somewhere else? Like, what's going on at practice that you're not working with your players to like work kinks out or anything? So I think he needs to, I really do think if he wants to be a successful head coach, and he is also a young head coach as well. I mean, it is his second year. He's never had like this type of responsibility before. So it is a learning curve as well, but you got to keep your emotions in check and you can't just be yelling at your players the entire time. You got to give yourself some slack as well. And you got to obviously work it out with them in private, not just on the field when the cameras are on you. The literal cameras were on him and he's
mhm,
screaming at Daniel Jones, even though I kind of like that, but he was just screaming at him on the field like, dude, like what you're throwing your the tab like a 3-year-old. Like the cameras are on you, man. Like what do you think's going to happen? So he needs to keep his emotions in check.
I like what you said there, and I really like the comparison that you made with Tom Coughlin, because Tom Coughlin is what we think of as a fiery head coach. But all the videos that we've ever seen of Tom Coughlin yelling at players, screaming at players, losing his mind, they're all videos of him at practice. I've never seen a video. I can't think of one where Brian Daboll was screaming at a player, or I mean, sorry, not Brian Daboll. Tom Coughlin was screaming at a player on the sideline of a game. Like, even think back to that Giants versus Panthers game, that very cursed game that probably kissed Odell Beckham Jr.'s time in New York goodbye. That moment where he was getting into it with Josh Norman, Brian Daboll, or I mean, I keep doing this. Tom Coughlin absolutely spoke to Odell Beckham Jr. on the sidelines. But did you see him scream, curse him out, throw things, flail his arms? No, you saw him speak to him. And best believe Tom Coughlin yelled at him after the game, yelled at him in the locker room, yelled at him at practice. But during the game, it's a different mentality that you have to have. And I think that's probably where Brian Daboll is struggling to toe that line. He's taking a lot of that practice energy and putting it on the sidelines. And it's kind of like one of those things where you leave that stuff at home and you don't take it to work with you. Practice is home. The sidelines of the games is work. I don't think Brian Daboll has that figured out yet. But like Will said, he is a young head coach. And Derby Dreamin', thank you for the donation. Much appreciated. Also says when a team is successful and yelling and feistiness is accepted, when the losses come, the players lose their patience, and so do the fans. Absolutely, so do the fans. The players, I agree. But, again, we're not in the locker room, so we don't necessarily know. But I will say, I think that when we're winning football games, all the stuff that looks bad optically doesn't look as bad. But when you're losing, it looks worse. So that's something that Brian Daboll needs to understand in this New York market. Yeah, he's been in New York with Buffalo. It's different than the New York City, New Jersey market of the New York Giants. It's totally different. The way that things are marketed, the way stories are panned out. Brian Daboll screaming on the sidelines of Buffalo is not the same thing as screaming on the sidelines of MetLife Stadium. It's just not. And I think that he makes a really good point there by saying when the team is winning, the writers don't write about him screaming. But when they're losing, yeah, everybody's talking about the tablet being thrown. Everybody's talking about Evan Neal being cursed at. I think it's all very true and very valid. But, all right, let's see. Sam Fountain thinks that Daboll gets a pass so far because the Giants had a winning season last year. Daboll needs to act more professional on the sidelines. Yeah, I think that's a really good level-headed take. Like, both things can be true. He deserves more time for the winning that they did last year, but he also needs to do better. So I agree with that, Sam. I think that's 100% valid. But let's talk about anything else. What do you guys want to talk about? I'm open here. What ideas do you have?
I just want to jump into something because you mentioned Justin Fields earlier, and I just feel like I really had something to say, and I need to get that out. Again, I don't know why people feel like they're going to move on from Justin Fields so fast. I like Justin Fields. And then I keep seeing Giants fans saying they want to trade for Justin Fields. That's when I'm like, okay, you guys are like absolutely insane. So I just want to know how you guys feel about that. Because for me, that makes absolutely no sense. If we're going to go for a new quarterback, I'd rather it be one we pick in the draft and not Justin Fields. But I just want to know, what is your feeling on that crazy take? Because I've been seeing it and it's been driving me insane.
Hell no to Justin Fields. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think the Bears are trying to make him something he's not, but I do not want him on the Giants. I want Drake May. I've been a Drake May guy since one of my friends is a huge UNC fan, so he kind of got me on a Drake May last year. I love that guy a lot. Or Caleb Williams. I do think that his maturity will be an issue in New York with all the spotlight being on him and how hard the New York media is, but I think he could be able to handle it. I mean, he is 22 years old, but he'll mature. But hell no to Justin Fields.
What about you, Anthony?
Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
But he's still not good.
So then if the Giants were to trade a mid-round pick for Justin Fields and take a flyer on him, is it really that bad of an idea? I don't think so. This is my thing with quarterbacks, and this is the point that I always make. Taking a mid-round flyer on a quarterback can never burn you. At the best, you're getting a player who's your franchise that you build around for the next 10 years. At your worst, you lost a mid-round pick that you're probably using on a developmental backup anyway. Who gives a shit? At the quarterback position, that's where you take the chance. Do I trade a mid-round pick to take a chance on a developmental running back? No. But on a quarterback, you're talking about getting a first-round talent for a fourth-round price tag, third-round price tag. Where is that a bad idea? Like, where in that you think of him, you can't think of him as this NFL player that he is. You think of him as the prospect that he was, plus a little bit more seasoning on him. That's what Justin Fields is. He's still Ohio State version of Justin Fields, but he's just had some really terrible coaching. I mean, think back if Brian Daboll was the head coach of the Giants back during that draft where Justin Fields went to the Chicago Bears, would we not have all been like, damn, imagine Justin Fields and a Brian Daboll offense? Like, think back to Ohio State Justin Fields. Would you not have been like, that cannon of an arm, that deep ball accuracy, that mobility? Was this guy not a stud at Ohio State? Will, I mean, you're acting like I'm crazy for saying this.
No, dude,
but
I 100% agree with that. Holy, like,
thank you.
If it was exactly like what I was saying with Anthony Richardson last year. Like Anthony
Thank you. I was just about to say that. Will. I was literally about to say that.
Anthony Richardson needed, like, he's a good quarterback, but he needed the perfect situation to go into the NFL with. Shane Steichen, that's the perfect situation. Brian Daboll would have been the perfect situation for Anthony Richardson. And look what he was doing before he got injured. He was playing a lot better than anyone thought he was going to. Some quarterbacks just go into terrible, like Trevor Lawrence when they hired Urban Meyer. Like, it's just a bad situation. Trevor Lawrence was never a bad quarterback. He's just not in a good situation. Like, he wasn't in a good situation. Justin Fields, Matt Eberflus is an idiot. He's not in the right situation. He needs to go somewhere where a coach will allow him to play like he is supposed to play, the style he's supposed to play. Yes, he is. So he's a running quarterback, but that's not all he's supposed to do, and that's what the Bears are trying to make him into. They're just trying to make him into a ground threat quarterback with no arm, and that's not what he is.
100%. So I'm glad that we were on the same page. I thought that you were going to disagree with me, but we are on the same page. It's so true to me. Like, I don't think enough Giants fans think about it. Like, if we had this team and we had questions at quarterback, like, let's say Daniel Jones just wasn't on team. We had no quarterback going into that 2021 NFL draft, and Brian Daboll was the head coach. Everyone would have been salivating at the idea of Justin Fields landing with the New York Giants so Brian Daboll could coach him. But now we're a few years removed. We've seen Justin Fields have really good moments with the Chicago Bears, but had terrible coaching around them and terrible playmakers around them outside of DJ Moore. And now everybody's like, no, I would never want Justin Fields on the New York Giants. Be open-minded. Just be open to it. That's what I would say. It's not going to happen. I will guarantee you that doesn't happen because optically the Giants can't make that move because it looks terrible after they just signed Daniel Jones. To trade for another NFL quarterback like that doesn't make sense. To reboot on a young guy that you can develop for a couple years and then let him take over, optically that looks a lot better than the brunt force of trading for his immediate replacement in Justin Fields. That doesn't make sense. So it's not going to happen. I don't think the Giants fans should really even discuss the Justin Fields thing. But if we do discuss the Justin Fields thing, I think the Giants fans should have a more open mind about it because, again, like Will just said, we all said, man, if the Giants did need a quarterback this offseason, Anthony Richardson would be such a fit in a Brian Daboll offense. But now all of a sudden, Justin Fields isn't the fit. Similar style quarterback, both really good players. Justin Fields was the way better prospect statistically at Ohio State than Anthony Richardson was coming out of UF. I don't know. Allie, I'll let you give your take on it, but I don't know if I want to spend too much more time on the Justin Fields conversation because, again, it's not going to happen.
I mean, yeah, you guys both said it all. I feel like I like Justin Fields. You know this. Going into the season, I was expecting something great from him this season because I love the fact that they got him DJ Moore. I feel like he just needed that weapon. But unfortunately, the Bears, I don't know, they just horrible coaching. I don't know what's going on with them. But I don't know. Maybe you guys kind of changed my mind a little bit because I really did not want Justin Fields. I just thought that it was like so outrageous to me. But
yeah, I think that it's an outrageous thought for the Giants. But for other teams around the NFL, like other fan bases that are like, no, I don't want Justin Fields, a lot of them are just kidding themselves. Justin Fields is an upgrade for most of these NFL teams that need a quarterback. And again, that's why I think that the Bears probably aren't sold on risking it with another quarterback prospect who doesn't have any NFL coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think Justin Fields makes sense to stay in Chicago. But again, that's another conversation for another day. I want to dive into this comment because this is a little spicy from JoJo Capone. It's DeVito beats Green Bay. Would you continue to talk about quarterbacks or would you give him a starting position and build around him? Now, what I'm going to say is to this, there is this narrative amongst Giants fans and amongst football fans that Tommy DeVito, his ceiling is a quality backup. Why is that his ceiling, though? And I'm actually asking this because, and I know that I'm sounding a little bit crazy, but why are we all just pigeonholing him into the ceiling of a backup quarterback? What has he shown that makes you think he's so much worse than what Bryce Young has shown this season, right? Like Bryce Young is a player that I think will turn into a good starting quarterback in the NFL. Has Tommy DeVito just not been able to throw the ball downfield? Not been like, are there not traits to Tommy DeVito's game that tell you with proper development, if a team fully bought into him and decided to build around him, he couldn't at least be a starter in the NFL? Like, what is it that makes everybody just say, is it because, and I think that this is what it is. It's this big label that gets attached to a first round prospect, to an undrafted prospect. The expectations are immediately lower for an undrafted guy than they are for a first round guy. First round guy has to become a starter, otherwise he's a failure. The undrafted guy becomes a backup and he's a massive success, right? So I think that's where this difference lies. But what is Tommy DeVito doing that's not proving on tape that he has the qualities of being a developmental starter? That's where I'm wondering. And I'll start with you, Will, because again, you're a little expressive while I'm speaking here. So do you think that it's just backup for Tommy DeVito? Like he's forever just considered hopefully a backup? Or do you also kind of like see what I'm seeing where it's like, this kid's showing like serious potential to one day do something in this league. He just needs coaching, but so does every young quarterback.
I think, see, I really don't know because I don't want to bring in the competition because it's the NFL. Like, you're an NFL. If you're in the NFL, you're an NFL caliber player. I don't care what team you're on. I don't care if you're good, bad. Like, you're an NFL caliber player. But I mean, I think he could be the starter. I don't know if that's what the Giants need. Like, my dad is a big, like, he wants Tommy DeVito to be the starter going into next year. And I just can't, like, I think if a team did put a lot of time and effort into him, it would work. But I don't think that's not what the Giants need right now. They just need to start from scratch. But I do think that he could be a starter in the NFL. And I mean, there are some things that he does, like holding on to the ball for too long, but I didn't think he was even that because it was going to be good. I thought he had no shot at doing anything with the Giants watching that Jets game, but he's really improved. And I think if you give him more and more time, then he, like you said, he could be a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, and before I kick it over to you, Allie, and get your take on it, I'm just going to bring up like this kind of loose comparison. And again, don't crucify me because it's a loose comparison. But like, let's think about Daniel Jones's rookie season. Like, let's just take that one in particular, for example. There were some ugly stretches of football, like 2 months of bad football, but those 1 to 2 games where he flashed serious potential, we were like, okay, this first round quarterback prospect that we drafted has the potential. Let's build around it. That one game where he threw for 300 yards as a rookie, hell yeah, let's build around it. Tommy DeVito has already had one of those games, maybe has another 1 or 2 down the stretch, and he's a rookie who has a lot of room to grow. Is it not like a similar story, a similar conversation? Like, why is the narrative so different? Again, I know that it's because he's not a drafted player, but like, is it fair to give him this ceiling while other players have such a longer leash and such a higher ceiling already given to them once they enter the NFL just because they're drafted higher? I don't know, kind of just how are you feeling about that? And like maybe looking at other quarterbacks, for example, that you might have off the top of your head who have rookie seasons with a lot of struggles, but they're drafted higher, so they're instantly given the starting job for the next 3 years. Why doesn't Tommy DeVito deserve to at least get an extended look and a higher chance of being something?
Well, I do kind of agree with what you're saying. I feel like the reason why people just have his ceiling as him being a backup is because he was an undrafted rookie who was our third string, wasn't projected to start this season, but he is. And so I feel like people are just automatically going to view him as a backup because he was our QB3. He was on the practice squad. He wasn't really anything. He wasn't our main backup. Tyrod Taylor was. But I actually thought we saw a lot from Tommy DeVito just in the preseason. Me and Anthony were up in him, even though it may have been like a joke, some of it, but there was like some truth to it as well. I feel like there's so much potential in him, and I feel like if he does get the development that he needs, that he could be a potential really good starter. It's just getting that development in. And I want to go back to what you said about Bryce Young, because first round overall pick, I do think he's getting crucified more than he maybe should have, because the Panthers are awful. They are awful. I feel like he was not even drafted into a great situation. It was like, okay, we're going to get Bryce Young. And by the way, we're going to trade away DJ Moore, and your wide receiver 1 is going to be Adam Thielen. That's a situation that he's in. It's just horrible. The Panthers are horrible. They didn't give him any much to work with. And now it's, oh, he is a draft bust. I don't think he's a draft bust. I just think that team needs to get some improving. But I see you are really expressive, so I want to hear what you have to say.
The Panthers. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The Panthers weren't even in a spot to draft Bryce Young. They moved up from 9. They gave away a first-round pick, first-round pick that was supposed to be very high this year that they could have used to help him, and they didn't. It's the same thing the Bears did with Justin Fields. They give a first-round, they trade up to get Justin Fields and give that pick to the Giants, and instead they obviously trade up. They don't have a first-round pick next year. They can't get an offensive line. They can't get a lineman or a wide receiver with that pick. They could have gotten Garrett Wilson with that pick to help him out. Well, obviously they probably wouldn't have had Fields at that point. But, these teams think, okay, I'm going to trade up. I'm going to give you all these picks, and I'm going to draft a young quarterback. Well, what are you going to do when your quarterback struggles and needs a wide receiver? You can't pick one. They could have had Marvin Harrison Jr., and they don't have him now. Now they have Adam Thielen, DJ Chark as his wide receiver 1 and 2. Like these teams are setting up their young quarterbacks for failure, and that's why that you see so many busts in the NFL.
That is 100% true. I totally agree with that. I think that a lot of the times a quarterback prospect is a good player going into the NFL. By the time they get through the NFL, they're a bad player because they've been coached so poorly and they never had success or talent around them to find success. I think Sam Darnold is a good example of that. He was a USC quarterback with so much talent, so much arm talent. That kid was good going to the New York Jets. The Jets ruined him. The Jets also ruined Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's a little different. He was a BYU product, not necessarily the same thing. But you're talking about a USC product, Sam Darnold. There's a reason that certain players just don't pan out, and it's not necessarily themselves. And that's why oftentimes we see quarterbacks get drafted early, become backups for 10 years, and then become starters or at least really good backups down the road. We see that pretty often where a guy is not the starter for a very long time and then way down the road after being a journeyman for several seasons, Geno Smith becomes the starter, gets paid like a franchise quarterback. And I will say, I will be sick to my stomach the day that Tommy DeVito gets a franchise quarterback contract from another team. Sick to my stomach, throwing up, pulling trig in the toilet. I will be so sick if Tommy DeVito becomes a starter anywhere but the New York, New Jersey area. But Charlie's comment here is completely valid. Let's not jump the gun on Tommy. You have not seen a significant sample size to name him anything more than a backup. We need to start fresh, draft a quarterback we can develop ourselves. This I do agree with. But my counter argument to about half of what you said is the usual argument is you need to see 20 games of a quarterback before you can decide what you have with them. Packers fans that I spoke to, or friends of mine who are Packers fans that I spoke to, were like, let's wait till we get to game 20 before we make a determination on Jordan Love. They're nearing game 20, and now they're feeling really good about it. Imagine if they pulled the plug after game 8, like Giants fans want to do with Tommy DeVito. What if Tommy DeVito had the extra 12 games to develop? What if he got to game 20, he had a full season and a half under his belt? Would Tommy DeVito then be a starting caliber quarterback? You don't know. Jojo, to answer your question, I would be sick to my stomach if he signed with another team as a franchise quarterback and was a franchise quarterback for not the New York Giants. If Tommy DeVito becomes a franchise quarterback anywhere but here, I'm sick to my stomach because he's one of my favorite NFL players of all time and he's barely played for the Giants. That's just how it is. So I'd be sick to my stomach if he signs for another team. But Vince, to answer your question, yes, Tommy is signed for 3 years. However, with the Giants quarterback room, if they hold 3 quarterbacks, which is unlikely, they'll be sacrificing talent elsewhere. But holding 3 quarterbacks, they could do. However, they're not likely to. So it's probably Tommy DeVito on his contract on the practice squad. So yeah, signed for 3 years, but it's unlikely that he's on the active roster for 3 years. So it's probably at the end of this year, he either becomes a full-time backup or he gets cut. And because of the Daniel Jones situation, he's very, very likely to get cut unless Daniel Jones starts out the year on injured reserve. So that's kind of the situation there. But yeah, I just think that it's interesting to know. Like Bryce Young, like we mentioned, Bryce Young is probably going to get at least 20 games before Carolina makes a decision on him. You know, CJ Stroud he's already proven to be great, but a lot of these young quarterbacks, Justin Fields, I think, is over 20 now. Definitely he is, but still a jury's still out on Justin Fields. Like a lot of these young quarterbacks, it takes a while to know. But with Tommy DeVito, everybody's just writing him off as his backup. And I just don't necessarily think that is fair. I think that he deserves a little bit more of a serious look from Giants fans and Giants personnel. And to be honest, I think that Brian Daboll sees it as well. I think he sees what we see on this panel, like what we're talking about right now with like maybe we shouldn't just be ruling out Tommy DeVito because he's an undrafted guy. I think that's the reason that Brian Daboll is starting Tommy DeVito. I think that he also sees it and is like, listen, we thought arm talent might be a problem for this kid entering the NFL, but right now we're seeing that arm talent is his biggest strength. What's the number one common denominator amongst all the top NFL quarterbacks? Arm talent. Tommy DeVito's arm talent is his biggest strength, so why can't he develop into something? That's what I go back to at the end of the day. So we'll, of course, continue to evaluate it, discuss Tommy DeVito as it goes on. Well, the last topic, grand finale topic that I do want to discuss, it's about the quarterback position. I don't want to necessarily talk about Daniel Jones, but I know that a lot of Giants fans like to hear different takes on the college quarterbacks, who we like, who we don't like. I want to hear some of these takes, whether they're hot, whether they're lukewarm, whether you really have them formulated or not. It's very early, like I said. April is all the way, and we're only in December. Like, there's plenty of time. My opinion right now on Bo Nix or Michael Penix might change in 3 months from now. It's going to change. But let's give our takes, our early introduction takes on some of these players and where we stand right now. Allie, I know that you watch a pretty good amount of college football. So, and I know that you like Michigan. You like a lot of the players on Michigan. So I do want to hear you hit on JJ McCarthy for sure. But also just overall, like where you stand on most of these quarterbacks, whether you want the Giants to draft a quarterback, maybe you don't. I'm pretty sure you do. But if you do, who's your leading guy in the clubhouse, and just kind of how are you feeling about some of these top first-round prospects?
Well, my leading guy is Drake May. I feel like right now my draft board, I have Drake May, Caleb Williams, and then I have Jaden Daniels as 3. I think Bo Nix and Michael Penix kind of interchange for me as far as where they land. I do think we take a quarterback. I would like to take a quarterback, even though I'm like the number 1 Daniel Jones fan. I love Daniel Jones, was absolutely devastated by him getting injured, was devastated by the poor quarterback play this season. But I feel like at this point, we just need a fresh start. And I am going to talk about my JJ McCarthy because he gets a lot of hate. I feel like Michigan in general, because, the signals stealing, Jim Harbaugh getting suspended twice, not being able to be on the sideline, people saying they're overrated, their schedule was pretty easy, whatever, fine. I watched a lot of Michigan even before this season, and I feel like as far as watching JJ McCarthy, I've seen the improvement, and I feel like that's what makes me excited for him just as a prospect and maybe potentially moving forward. I feel like I see little things. It's the little things of JJ McCarthy. Last season, when he would scramble with the ball, he wouldn't keep his eyes down the field and he would either just run out, wouldn't be able to make a play. Whereas this season, he's always looking for his receiver. He is able to extend a play. And I feel like it's those little things that make me excited. Jim Harbaugh does a really great job at developing JJ. He doesn't really stray away from his weaknesses. He more so wants him to power through those weaknesses, which I really do like. His game against Bowling Green, I think he threw 3 interceptions maybe, and he admitted that game was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to him, because that game he was in his head, he wanted to be perfect, but you know what, he realized, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do best, and that's play football, and I'm going to do what I can. And I love JJ. I love him as a person, as a player, and I feel like maybe he's not the highest on the draft board, but I don't feel like you should go and off yourself and throw a tantrum if the Giants were to take JJ, or if anybody were to take JJ. I feel like that's not a bad quarterback to have. There is a lot of potential in JJ McCarthy, so he is one of my favorites. He's someone I'm going to be rooting for, Giant or no Giant. I am excited to see JJ's future in the NFL. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I can't say the same. I think that JJ McCarthy is just a slightly better Mac Jones. I don't view him as a first-round prospect. He's going to go in the first round because he's a winning quarterback at a big school, and he's got good traits, and he's got good stats. Yeah, there's a reason that you would take a chance on him in the first round, but for me, this is a guy that you want to be a system quarterback. This is not a guy that you draft in. Worst case, you make him a system quarterback. This is a guy that you want to take him and put him in your system. And I think there's a big difference between you want to draft a guy like a Caleb Williams and put him in your system and make him a system guy. Yeah. You don't want a guy that has to be a system guy, if you get what I'm saying. Okay. Caleb Williams can be anything. It's it's a wild card, and that's why he's boom or he's bust. But with McCarthy, his ceiling for me is a system guy, not a translatable into any system, but you have to build a specific system for him to succeed, which requires a lot of talent around him, up front on the offensive line, in the receiving core. It's just a different playing style, and it's a different level. It's a more limited quarterback is what I'm saying. It's more like you're handcuffed to him in a different way than you are with some of these other prospects. So I'm not high on McCarthy. wouldn't be my first round prospect. Another hot take. This is early still. Again, my rankings might change on all these guys. Maybe I change my mind. I think McCarthy is a first round prospect later. But Michael Penix, I know a lot of fans like him in the first round. Me, I don't even know if he would be on my draft board. 2 ACL injuries. That's tough. How do you get past that? 2 ACL injuries. That's something I swear I see Giants fans talking about these quarterback prospects every single day. And I see a whole bunch of them talking about Michael Penix being the pick at number 7, or if we fall. Do any of them know that he's torn his ACL twice? Do they know that?
Probably not.
Because we hear so much crap about Giants players with injury histories and injury-prone label to guys who just sprain their ankle once or twice. But this guy has torn his ACL twice. And we talk about, like we were with earlier with Saquon Barkley, how he's lost steps. Has Michael Penix not lost steps? I mean, undoubtedly he has. He cannot move the same, and he's only 24. I don't know. I just think that somebody who's had 2 significant ACL traumas, it's really tough to take a player like that in the first round, let alone even the second round. So I don't even know if he would be on my draft board. Again, I really like his talent. I love his arm talent. Love the way that he plays for Washington. But the Washington prospect that I would rather have on the New York Giants is Rome Odunze. I'm obsessed with that kid.
I like
oh my God, I'm obsessed with him. But then you have guys like Jaden Daniels, who I do think first round prospect. I love him. And then Drake May, Caleb Williams. For me, Caleb Williams is probably my number 1 prospect on the draft board, but Drake May is the guy that I would rather draft because Caleb Williams scares the shit out of me. And that's kind of where I stand. But, Will, let's hear about some of these quarterbacks, whether you're talking McCarthy, Penix, May, Williams, Daniels. Like to know your opinions on some of these top guys.
See, I haven't been able to watch a lot of people, a lot of other quarterbacks recently, or anyone in the draft, because I've been doing the transfer portal. And I really don't watch a lot of college football outside of JMU, just because I work for them. So it's like I just don't really care about anyone else but JMU. But I will talk about Caleb Williams. I like Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. He has talent that you can't teach, and I think he has talent that's comparable to Mahomes and some of the throws that he makes in a tight spaces and on the run. I do know his maturity is an issue, but I think with the right coach, you can get that out of a player. I know that I said the New York media is very hard, and it is. And him crying to his mom on the sideline probably wasn't the best thing, because obviously now
he's 22.
Yeah, he is 20. He's 22 years old. Like
and wasn't that like his last game? They weren't even bowl eligible.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's why he was sad.
Like he's 22 years old. Like it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Players have emotions. Like they're not just these robots. They're gonna cry. Like, I mean, Tom Brady cried on the sideline. No one gave him slack about that. Bo Nix cried after he lost in the Pac-12 championship. No one gave him slack about that. But because it's Caleb Williams and he's his top quarterback coming out. But I think that I don't know if the Giants will have a play at him. I think they could if the Bears don't go quarterback at number 1, which I could see them not doing. I could see them taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1. But Caleb Williams, I think, is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL, and I think he is the safest pick if the Giants are going to take a quarterback.
That's interesting.
So you said Caleb Williams would be your safest pick?
You know what you're getting out of him. My friend is a big evaluator, not like evaluator just for himself. He thinks there's a lot of bust tendencies in Drake May's game, and he thinks that Caleb Williams is also the safest pick.
So I agree with half of what you said. There are bust tendencies in Drake May's game. To say that the safest pick is Caleb Williams is a little bit crazy to me, because I think that he's got as many bust tendencies as Drake May, arguably more. The thing about Caleb Williams is the ceiling is unlimited, because we've never seen a player like him. Patrick Mahomes didn't look like Patrick Mahomes in college. Drake May looks like Patrick Mahomes in college. We've never seen a player look like Patrick Mahomes in college. We've only seen Patrick Mahomes look like Patrick Mahomes in the NFL, right? So when you're seeing a player like Drake May do what he does, it's historic. And yes, it gets that generational label, but at the same time, it's a product of a system that Lincoln Riley has been cultivating for years and years, and has not necessarily always translated into the NFL game. Like, we've seen players come out of this Lincoln Riley system, transfer, go into the NFL and not play well. it's not necessarily translatable. And my thing is whenever I watch quarterbacks, college quarterbacks, and I say whether or not I think they're going to succeed in the NFL, it's really about how they play in structure more so than out of structure. And in structure, that's where I lean towards a guy like Jaden Daniels. I think he's the best in this class in structure. The guy goes from read 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and then finds it and makes the throw. Again, you need a good offensive line for that, good offensive coordinator. Those are things that you need, but those are things you hope you have when you draft a guy. You try to build around him, put those things for him. But with Caleb Williams, it's oftentimes one read is not there, maybe 2 is there, but I'm not going to take it. I'm going to run around for 7 seconds and then find somebody. That doesn't work in the NFL. It works for Patrick Mahomes, and it doesn't always work for Patrick Mahomes. So it's like unlimited potential is there for Caleb Williams. He does these things and nobody else can. But there is something to say about the fact that he does things that no one else can tells you maybe nobody else can do them. Like maybe he can't do them. Maybe no one in general can do them. So there is a lot of bust factor, in my opinion, to Caleb Williams. He's exciting. He's got the highest potential, the most talent. He's every quarterback coach's dream. That's what you want to work with. But again, he's going to be a player that's really tough to get used to the NFL system and playing in structure. So if I had to guess it, Caleb Williams could probably have the best long-term career, but year one rookie, I would not take Caleb Williams as my rookie of the year. I don't think that he could succeed in his first year in the NFL unless he walks into the perfect situation, which New England, Chicago, New York, none of these are perfect situations for him. So that's kind of where I sit with Caleb. With Drake, he'd be my QB1 because he can do those things out of structure when he has to, but he doesn't rely on them. And he does a lot of that stuff from the pocket. But then there's stuff where, he gets under pressure, he throws up these ugly ducks and gets picked off. So I don't know. It's a really interesting quarterback class. But last thing that I'll say about it and kind of get your takes on, we think back on recent quarterback classes where there's been a lot of quarterbacks at the top. That one class, what was it, 2021 with Kenny Pickett and Mac Jones, I think it was, or whoever it was. That's the one that we all like to think of that was ugly, and that's like not the standard. Those are a bunch of mid-round prospects that went in the first round because of positional need. But then you think about 2020 where it was Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert. That class is so good, and it's so historic. That's like the 2004 class 2.0 with Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Phillip Rivers. What are the odds that this class actually ends up being a 2004 or 2020? And what are the odds that it ends up being a 2018 where one guy like a Josh Allen in the top 10 hits, or like a 2021 where none of these guys in the first round hits? That's what we need to start discussing. I think more NFL fans, more NFL draft fans need to start discussing, is this a class that more resembles 2004, 2020, or does it more resemble 2018? And sometimes I sit there and I think about it. One day I'm like, oh, this is 2020. Another day I'm like, oh, this is 2018. I don't know. So I think it's a good question for us all to ponder. I think it's a question that more NFL fans should be pondering. But Allie, I think I want to get your take on this first. I know that you're really into college football. You watch a lot more of it than I do. I watch a lot of like film on college prospects, but I don't watch like the games in totality every weekend. So I'm curious to know how you feel about that, and like maybe not even like where you are and like what your take is. Is this class more 2020 or 2018 or whatever, but more just like how you feel about like the idea of that, just the idea that this class, it's so rare to get a 2020 or 2004 class. So like, what is the likelihood? So just kind of like your overall thoughts on that.
I do think this is one of the better quarterback classes, to be fair. I do feel like there's a lot of names that could be really successful. I think it's hard to try to like see if it's like a Joe Burrow class, because to be fair, LSU Joe Burrow was insane to watch. I maybe don't watch enough college football to say that there has been a quarterback I've watched this season that made me go, wow, as much as LSU Joe Burrow has for me. I feel like I haven't had that. I don't know. But it is an interesting question. I feel like it's something that I feel like I am going to think about now moving forward. But again, it is one of the better ones. I would have to see how next season pans out for me to give like an actual like, okay, this is what it is. But I don't know. That's a tough question. I wonder, what do you think, Will?
Before we jump to Will, I'm just gonna fire it back at you, Allie, because I'm gonna go through this exercise. And again, it's all subject to change, whatever. Let's go through a quick exercise. LSU Joe Burrow, I'm going to say for what it's worth, like you just mentioned him, the way that he was, he only had that one good season, like really, but he just proved to be this generational prospect in 1 year and then turned into an elite NFL quarterback immediately. But like, okay, let's stack it up. LSU Joe Burrow versus 2023 Bo Nix. It's got to be an easy pick here. It's LSU Joe Burrow, no?
Yeah.
I haven't watched a lot of Bo Nix, though, to be fair.
All right,
but I feel like it might
it's
be
LSU Joe Burrow. All right, so LSU Joe Burrow versus 2023 Washington Michael Penix.
Joe Burrow.
Okay, LSU Joe Burrow. Let's move the needle upwards versus LSU 2023 Jaden Daniels.
Joe Burrow.
It's Joe Burrow. And I will say this, everyone's bringing up Jaden Daniels' records and how it's close to Joe Burrow's. I feel like the college level talent Joe Burrow's year was also maybe a lot harder than Jaden Daniels' college level talent is this year.
I would agree with that.
I
would agree with that. I really, again, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of things I really like about Jaden Daniels, and I know on this channel because Alex is a huge fan of his. We're going to dive into him a whole lot more, probably go through film and stuff, and I'll highlight the things I really like about him, things I don't. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. The talent was different against Joe Burrow, and the pick is Joe Burrow. Okay, so now let's move up the needle even further, or maybe not further. Let's go Joe Burrow or JJ McCarthy.
Joe Burrow.
Allie, this is exactly. See, Allie, even you're the biggest JJ McCarthy supporter here, and you're Joe Burrow. So, okay, now let's move the needle further. Joe Burrow or Drake May?
Burrow.
Yeah.
Now let's take it one last step. Joe Burrow, 2019 it was, versus 2023 Caleb Williams.
Burrow.
I feel like LSU Joe Burrow was insane. I will also say
Joe Burrow.
Another insane quarterback, Clemson Trevor Lawrence, and I feel like I'm really upset by the Clemson Trevor Lawrence was insane.
Yeah, he was.
And T. Higgins. You let T. Higgins go to the Jags when he goes into free agency, I guarantee you they're going to the Super Bowl.
He's a giant.
I want him to be a Giant so bad.
Clemson Trevor Lawrence clears probably every quarterback prospect minus like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. So like I didn't even want to bring him into the conversation. But that Joe Burrow where he was like generational in a year, but like, you know, he wasn't 4 years of it like Trevor Lawrence. I think that's like a really good comparison to make to these guys. So now the last one is, and this is the one that's going to make my point for me, LSU Joe Burrow versus 2023 Caleb Williams. That's the point. You're probably going to go Joe Burrow here, and then you're going to say, is this quarterback class 2020 or is it 2021/18? That's what I'm saying. This is like this is what I sit here and I think about.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be up all night about this, to be fair. I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Joe Burrow was that bona fide number one pick. And now we talk about Caleb Williams as his number one bona fide pick. But is he on the same level that Joe Burrow was? And then we talk about, Caleb Williams could maybe be better than we think about Drake May could maybe be better than Caleb Williams is. But was there anyone in that 2020 class that even rivaled Joe Burrow? There wasn't. And you still had two other top 10 quarterbacks in Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. Neither of those two were considered even remotely close to being number one overall picks, but they were definitely first-round picks. So you don't even have a Joe Burrow in this class necessarily. Mm-hmm. And then when you're talking about the Tuas and the Herberts, if I walk you through that same exercise, I bet over half of the quarterbacks in this class, you're probably going Justin Herbert from Oregon that 2019 season over more than half of these first round quarterbacks in this year's class. Yeah. So that's why I default. So now let's talk about UCLA. Josh Rosen was definitely a top 10 overall prospect. He was sick, but you'd probably take a couple of these other guys in this class over him, but you might take UCLA Josh Rosen over some of those guys. So is this class more 2020 or is it more 2018? That's where I fall back on, and that's where I think maybe we need to start tempering our expectations and stop getting so excited about all these prospects.
I can agree. I do want to mention a little thing about Justin Herbert. I do not like that people are trying to turn on Justin Herbert, that people are trying to say that he does not have a clutch gene, that he's the reason why the Chargers are losing, because I've been seeing a lot of people put blame on Justin Herbert, and I can tell you right now, as someone who watches the Chargers, it is not on Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert will put up 30 points in a game, and his defense will still allow 30 more points, like, on top of what he
Mhm.
just scored. Quentin Johnston, I actually really liked Quentin Johnston. I thought it was kind of unfair that they didn't even invite him for day 1 to the draft, but I am eating my words because the fact that this man cannot catch a ball is so aggravating to me. And then it goes to Justin Herbert. Oh, Justin Herbert does not have the clutch gene. Justin Herbert is a hell of a quarterback. I just feel like the Chargers are just, I don't know, they are falling apart. They have so much talent, and yet they can't do anything. And it's aggravating to just watch the Chargers because I love Justin Herbert, and I feel like he deserves more than what he's
In an
getting.
alternate universe, Justin Herbert does not go back for his senior year of college.
Yes. I cannot tell you how badly I wanted Justin Herbert in the 2019 NFL draft. He was my pick at number 6. And when he went back to Oregon, I fucking cried. Sorry for saying that. But I cried. I wanted him so badly that I cried.
That is a very, like, real emotion. You are 100% right for crying.
Yeah. I cried.
Okay, and that's so real. And here's the thing is everybody knows I'm this huge Drake May guy in this draft class, right? Justin Herbert over Drake May. And so that's when I'm like, is this draft class, am I this obsessed with it? Justin Herbert over Drake May. So then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't know if this class is 2020. I think this class might be 2018.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Daniel Jones in the comments that just took me out. It says Daniel Jones, now you have me. I don't know. That was
Daniel Jones is actually not allowed to be in this chat. He's not.
Get out of
We've
here.
banished him. Justin Herbert wants to pop into the chat. Come hang out. Come sign
Justin
with the
Herbert, you're
Giants.
always allowed to be a Giant.
Love Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, it is not you. It is your horrible coaching staff and horrible receivers who can't catch the ball.
What I like about what you said about Quentin Johnston is, like you said, you really liked him. What I will say about Quentin Johnston is I did really like him, but he definitely wasn't my favorite wide receiver in the class. And he was a player that I was like, yeah, he's a first-round prospect in this class. But again, it's kind of like that. The same thing that we're talking about with these quarterbacks, 2020 versus 2018. It's kind of like the same thing with last year's wide receiver class. Is we were like, oh, there's some good players, but they're not like, what year did it was 2020 that Jamar Chase came out, right? And I think just 2021.
2020 was Lamb, Judy, Ruggs.
Oh my God, that class was disgusting. That class was so fucking good. It was
Anthony
unreal.
loves wide receivers. You see the excitement.
Yeah, but so was the 2021 class. Like both of those classes were just disgusting. And then everybody was like, "Oh, there's so many first-round talents in this 2022 class," and it was like, stack them up versus 2021 and 2020. It's not even close.
Yeah,
like Jerry Jeudy coming out of college versus Quentin Jefferson coming out of college. He makes Quentin Jefferson look like an undrafted free agent, or Quentin Johnston, whatever. He makes him look like an undrafted free agent, you know? And that's where I'm. So I did that exercise with the wide receivers, and then I was like, let's apply it to the quarterbacks. And that's where I said, okay, this quarterback class might be a little bit overrated by the media because we want there to be one of these exciting 2020 quarterback classes. Like we want to see something like that. But in reality, it's probably 2018.
It could be.
I think Penix is going to be a bust.
Maybe.
Yeah. The thing is, though, when we're like, okay, so let's look back on 2018. First of all, okay, and this actually ties into the Tommy DeVito conversation where you have a talented quarterback prospect who becomes a journeyman and then all of a sudden turns into a really good. Baker Mayfield was drafted into the shittiest situation, talented player, and he's proving that right now at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in my opinion. He needed to go sit behind, like be a backup for a little bit, not take on a starting role fully. Now he's with the Bucs and he's like proving like, oh yeah, he actually is a starting quarterback. This 2018 class versus 2020 or versus 2023, Josh Allen was the only one that like was an immediate, you know, and it wasn't even immediate. It took him a few years, but is like the bona fide star of that top 10. Right, from that class, because you had Baker, you had Darnold, you had Rosen, and you had Allen. Those were the four. But he was the end of the first round. So
yeah, I thought you were talking about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about all of them. My bad.
Yep, those were the 4 top 10 quarterbacks. And so you're saying that only Josh Allen is the major hit from that class. And so then it's like, who from this class is the Josh Allen? And that's when you want to take traits and you want to apply them and say, who compares most? And that's why Drake May is my number 1 quarterback, because he looks like a Wyoming Josh Allen. That's why he's my favorite. To me, I see Caleb Williams as being more Oklahoma Kyler Murray. But then I can't tell if that's just because they're similar players and similar talents, or because they both played for Lincoln Riley. And that's where I get. So I don't know. The quarterback class is fun. I haven't been able to really talk about it on the channel yet until this live stream. So I kind of like went way over time on this, but I'm enjoying hearing different opinions and talking about these quarterbacks because it's definitely the talk of the town for Giants fans and really for the NFL in general.
Yeah,
it's always fun. I feel like there's always hit or misses, but you could go.
See, I think this draft class, if I'm looking at it through college, I think it's going to be 2018 now that I think about it. I don't think it's going to be 2004, 2020, because those guys were like good for more than how like they were good for their whole college career. It wasn't just 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess May and Williams are the guys that were like have stood out for their entire college career. But like Penix, first good year, Daniels, first good year.
Both transfers.
Penix
transferred to a lesser competition, and the argument for Daniels is he transferred to a more difficult competition and then became a better player. And I think that's something to keep an eye on. Is like he went from ASU over to LSU, then he started dominating SEC talents. But again, the SEC talents that he's facing right now, are they the same SEC talents as 2020? No, and I think that's a good point that Ali made. No. But yeah, I think I probably scared the shit out of a lot of Giants fans hoping for a quarterback in this draft. Like, maybe we are going to draft a bust.
Yeah, there's been awful draft classes. Freaking Desmond Ridder, horrible.
Oh my God, quarterback draft class was like 2013. That was one of the worst. Those are the two worst draft classes in recent memories.
Oh my God.
Even apply the same like thought process and logic where you're taking different draft classes and apply it to this past one, this 2023 one, where you're talking about CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, who ended up falling out of the first round. Like if you take these guys and you compare them to that 2020 class, you're going Burrow over Bryce Young and everybody. Yeah. You're going probably Justin Herbert over these guys as well. Like CJ Stroud is now, of course, proving to be this awesome player for the Houston Texans. But like if you're talking prospect to prospect, you're probably going Herbert over him. You're probably even considering Tua Tagovailoa over him. Maybe that one's a little bit of a stretch because CJ Stroud was really good at Ohio State. But again, you look at these recent quarterback classes. Everybody likes to talk about generational class, so much talent at the top at the quarterback position. These guys are all first-round prospects. Are they really first-round prospects, and do they really stack up to these other great quarterback classes? This is the conversation. Like we have a lot of NFL fans, a lot of Giants fans, a lot of NFL fans in general talking about this class and how great it is, but nobody's talking about stacking it up against previous classes. Yeah. And that's where the conversation needs to start heading, in my opinion. But on that note, Justin Herbert wants to request a trade to the Giants. Everybody on this panel will welcome you with open arms, Justin Herbert. I'm happy that you popped into the chat. And we hope to see you in a big blue uniform in 2024.
Yes.
Should have been in a big blue uniform to start his career anyway.
Should have.
Facts.
That would have been a
But I will say for you, Anthony, I feel like the reason why people are saying that this is such a great draft class is because I feel like the draft classes have been not as great. Outside of what maybe Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, I feel like 2021 was what? Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence was maybe the best one in that class. Was that 2021?
And Trevor Lawrence was like, everybody knew he was going to be a superstar. Like,
Trevor
Lawrence was Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is the one that we go to that 2020 class, you take Trevor Lawrence over Joe Burrow. But that's the exception to the rule. Everybody else that we've mentioned, you take Joe Burrow over them. And Joe Burrow at the time was looked at as this bona fide number one pick who only had one good season, and he was a risk of himself. But yet we take Joe Burrow over all of these other guys. So like think about what that means for these other guys. That's like the mental exercise that I put myself through when I evaluate these quarterbacks.
No, I'm going to do that before I go to sleep. And start
got to dive into it and really look at it. And it's like, it's always going to be Trevor Lawrence. Like he's always going to be here.
Clemson, Trevor Lawrence.
And then it's like Joe Burrow is right there. And then it's like, how do you stack up all these other quarterback prospects since then?
I watch Clemson, Trevor Lawrence highlights probably all the time. Whenever I'm sad, I'm like, I'm going to throw on some Clemson, Trevor Lawrence highlights, and it does something to me. I love him. It's insane.
You know what I did before this start? Like it was August. I watched Trevor Lawrence his huddle highlights. Holy, I watch high school kids every single day. Like, I mean, we're a group of 5 schools, so we're not going to get a Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence is like, out of any single high school kid I've ever watched, like, he is like in a different, like, just dimension of how good he is. Like, of his traits in high school, like, he looked like an NFL starter in high school. It is nuts how good that kid was. Like, 15 years old playing on varsity football. Like, what? That's nuts. He was so good, and he still is really good.
I know.
I remember way back when he was in high school, like being on Instagram and seeing this tall dude with long hair just like ripping dimes, and everybody's like, "Is this the future of football?" And I'd be like, "He's a freaking high schooler. Who cares?" And I'd scroll by, and here we are all these years later. And Trevor Lawrence really lived up to those expectations, and it's mind-boggling that he did that. Like, he did that.
I remember you going at the Instagram. There's one video of the first video I've ever saw of Trevor Lawrence was him at like some just like combine thing, just throwing an absolute dot to this one guy on the sidelines, and that was the first video I ever saw of Trevor Lawrence. And then he went to Clemson. I looked him up.
How about this one though? This is the one that everybody talks about, but nobody knows who it is. There's this one highlight, high school football highlight, where this guy is running towards the end zone and stops on a dime. The guy flies by him. He does that, and he walks in. Boynton Beach High School. Nobody realized that was Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, who I literally watched in person destroy my friends in middle school. I was in middle school. They were in high school. They played for Seminole Ridge High School in West Palm Beach. Boynton Beach High School, traveled up there. This quarterback, I swear to God, I went to this game. This quarterback was just unreal. Ran for 200 yards, threw for another 300. It was the most dominant high school football performance that I had ever seen. And I was like, holy shit, that kid was so good. And then years later, I saw that highlight, the Boynton Beach one. I was like, oh my God, I remember watching him in high school when he killed my friends. And then I saw it again a couple of years later, and everyone was like, wow, did you guys know this was Lamar Jackson? And I was like, dots connected. I watched Lamar Jackson absolutely embarrass my friends. That was the craziest talent that I've ever seen in person, like an athlete that I've seen not at a professional level at the sporting events. Unreal.
That's cool.
I don't even know.
Haven't gone to many sporting events.
Johnny G talking about high schools. Jason Pinnock is from my hometown. Came back to watch high school. State's game was cool. Yeah, he's a New Jersey native. Jason Pinnock, pretty cool. I think he's from Orange County, something like that. I think. Yeah, a lot of good football players come from the South Florida area that I'm in. Santonio Holmes is another one. Matt Elam and Kyer Elam, both from this area. I think Jerry Jeudy a little further south in Pompano, about 45 from me.
I thought he was from Alabama.
Well, he played for Alabama, but I
thought he was from Alabama.
I could be thinking of somebody else. I could be thinking of somebody else, but I thought that he was from Pompano. There is a receiver though who came from the area.
From Florida. Fun fact: my boss recruited Jerry Jeudy to Alabama.
Really? Wow. That's pretty cool.
That is
Evan
cool.
Neal, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, you name it.
Sad Henry Ruggs. I was so excited about Henry Ruggs.
Judy's from Deerfield.
Yeah, I thought he was from Alabama for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of wide receiver talents from down here. It's pretty cool. I got to go watch my high school football.
Jalen Waddle's from Florida, I'm pretty sure as well.
It's a bet I don't really know anybody from here, which is sad. All I know is that Saquon Barkley's from the Bronx, and that's it.
Yeah, there's really not a ton of NFL talents from the New York, New Jersey area. But you look at
New Jersey.
Yeah, he is from Patterson. That is true. I read his autobiography.
Me too. When I was in 3rd grade, he was my favorite.
I was in 4th or 5th grade. Yeah,
he is my favorite Giant of all time. Love Victor Cruz.
I was actually talking about that recently with my mom, and I was like, my favorite Giants, because I was watching the Ravens game on Thursday night a few weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? Like, there's so many great New York Giants from those Super Bowl teams that I absolutely love, and I think though at the end of the day, Eli Manning is my number one favorite Giant, but after that, Odell Beckham Jr. is probably my second favorite New York Giants player I ever watched. Even though we had JPP, Tuck, like we had Cruz, all these guys who won Super Bowls, Odell won nothing with his team, and I still think he's my second favorite Giants player of all time. And I think that's just crazy.
The Puerto Rican in me love me some Victor Cruz. I feel like my mom doesn't really watch football, but she watched football when Victor Cruz was on the team. And for me, I just remember my childhood
True.
memories of being my mom watching football with us, and
Mhm.
she would hit the salsa whenever Victor Cruz hit the salsa. And I feel like that was just something that was so cute to me. So I have like that little love
Everybody
with
hit the
Victor Cruz.
salsa. If anybody on this panel saying that they didn't hit the
I
salsa,
did.
you're lying through your
I
damn
did.
teeth. I was hitting the salsa every Sunday.
Listen, my
He didn't even have to
second
score.
ever
He just picks
Giants
up a nice
game.
first down. I'm hitting the salsa. I don't give a shit.
Literally.
My second ever Giants game. They were playing the Jets on New Year's Eve. It was the second to last game of the year when Victor Cruz has 99-yard touchdown, and the entire MetLife Stadium was yelling Cruz. And then the next week, he scores on the first drive against the Cowboys, propelled us into the playoffs. You know who else I love? I love Chase Blackburn, linebacker from 2011. Chase Blackburn, loved him.
Chase Blackburn was cool. Chase Blackburn, I liked him.
Pierre Pasco.
Fun fact about the Victor Cruz touchdown versus the Jets. 2 fun facts. One, when that play was about to happen, when the Giants were on the 1 yard line, I was sitting there watching it with my uncle, and I said, "Wouldn't it be great if Victor Cruz took it to the house for 99 yards as a joke?" And then it fucking happened, and we were just like, "Ah!" We just started screaming at each other, like, "Oh my god!" So then, like the whole rest of the game, I'm like, "Wouldn't it be great if this happened?" Nothing ever happened again, but that was the moment. And then the
That's
other fun fact:
great.
Alex Wilson was at that game. He was at the
Me
Giants
too.
versus Jets game. He's
Me
told me
too.
about that. So, yep.
I was freezing cold.
I need to go to more Giants games. I've been to one, and it was like the worst one imaginable. It was the Mike Glennon freaking Cowboy game.
But I haven't seen a Giants win since 5th grade. I've been going since 2nd grade. I've not seen a win since 5th grade.
I've been to probably like 10 Giants games in my life. Every time they're in Florida, I try and go. I've been to a handful of Dolphins games, a handful of Buccaneers games, and 1 Jags game. I was at the Jags game last year when they stopped what's his name at the 1 yard line. That was pretty cool. That was cool because I was in the lower half, and you could feel the ground shaking because there were so many Giants fans. Like, it felt like a home game, and like the ground that you were standing on wasn't stable. Like, you were either moving with it or you were sitting down because it was like so many people jumping up and down on that last drive when the Jags were trying to score. The ground was literally moving. It was really cool. So that was a fun one.
I'm trying to go to more, but it's hard.
Favorite. I went to Giants versus Lions in 2010. Calvin Johnson had a 78-yard touchdown. That was freaking sick. Stafford was out for the year. It was like Sean Hill, I think his name was. Do you guys remember him? He was like a dirty backup quarterback. He was so good as a backup. Giants versus Falcons in 2009. Kevin Boss 3 touchdown game.
Oh my Kevin Boss, dude.
Giants win in overtime.
Oh my
Craziest
God.
game ever. It was like a stupid game. Like, Kevin Boss went crazy and they won in overtime. It was like, what the hell did I just watch? It was sick. Yeah, Kevin Boss was nice. Giants versus Dolphins Monday Night Football. Odell Beckham Jr. scores 3 touchdowns, hits the Ray Lewis. I was at that.
Oh my God! Wait, do you remember his catch that he barely dragged his toe?
You want to?
Oh
Will,
my goodness!
Will, get ready for this.
Shitting myself that
game.
Will,
get ready for this. Get ready for this. I'm gonna send this to you. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna send it to myself, and I want to put it on the screen. So you're gonna lose your mind.
I almost went to the Giants Cowboys game in 2016 where OBJ hit that slant. But the week before, so we have season tickets in my family since they play at the Polo Ground. So I'm like super lucky that I'm able to go every year. But this was the one game I missed since 2nd grade. My grandparents sold the tickets before, not realizing that I was coming up the literal week before. And I was in 8th grade, and I was so sad. I was like, oh my God. But it was still a really good game. And it was like 17 degrees out, I remember.
All right, hold on. Let me put this.
I want to go to more.
I gotta put this video on the screen.
I was gonna go to Giants versus Packers, but
Will, you're gonna love this video. Hold on. Warning: this might start off with a really loud noise, but I'm gonna mute it. Hold on.
No way! No way! That is awesome.
Yep, I took that video. I was in the end zone when he made that play, and if you rewatch it really closely, you can see he gets his feet in. Like, if you pause it at the right moment, like right there, it's
Dude,
tough to
that
see.
catch was insane.
It was crazy.
He
I
was
lost
so-
my mind when he made this catch. And then he scored the long one where he hit the Ray Lewis to the other end zone. So
Yeah.
I didn't get a good video of that one.
See,
But yeah, this one.
I think the
was a good
craziest game I've been to was the Giants-Cowboys game It was the last game of the year, Saquon's rookie year, and we went down, and then Evan Ingram had 2 touchdowns. They hit the 2-point conversion, and Cole Beasley got his damn knee down right in front of my eyes, like literally right in front of my eyes, like not even 5 feet away from me. And me and my grandfather went home in silence.
Should we even talk about how Evan Ingram is a top 10 tight end in the NFL right now?
I don't want to.
Top 5, arguably. Top 5.
I liked him a lot, actually.
I loved Evan Ingram. I thought he got a really bad rep. I mean, I was like, so when he left, I said, this was my take
The
on
amount
it.
of balls he dropped.
No, I know, but my take on it was best for both parties to move on.
Yeah.
It just became like a toxic relationship. You just got to move on, find something
agree.
better. And I was like, it was mutually exclusive parting of ways. Like he needed to change of scenery. The Giants needed to go in a different direction. But damn good player, great talent, just wasn't the right environment.
I was really
right
happy when
situation.
we drafted him in 2017.
I was too. I was happy with it. But I was also happy when he left because I was like, you know what? It's just not going to work out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Evident. We had some bad tight ends before him though. Will Tye, Larry Donnell, Martellus Bennett for a year.
The thing about Larry Donnell is I don't understand why that man just could not stay on his 2 feet. Dude. Every time he caught a ball, he was falling to the ground. Every single time. It didn't matter how open he was. If he was catching a football, he was landing on the ground within a second.
When I was younger, I thought Will Tye was like the best tight end of all time. I loved Will Tye for no reason.
I did too. It's actually mad funny. I told my friends, I was like gassing up my Giants players back in the day. I was like, don't be surprised if Will Tye's a Pro Bowler.
Yes. I lost it when it was against the Bears and he hit the Millie Rock, and I was like, this guy is legit. He's a top 10 tight end, and then he gets cut the next year.
All it takes for us young Giants fans.
I did that a lot
hits the
with
Millie
players.
Rock.
Did that a lot with players.
At least we were right about OBJ. He hit the whip, and we were all like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest player ever!" But he actually is the coolest player ever. So,
love OBJ.
I also cried when he got traded.
I did too.
Yeah,
I was at
I think everybody did.
Went into my mom's car, cried. She's like, "It's okay." I'm like, "No, it's not. You don't understand. You don't get it."
From that point on, I just hated Dave Gettleman. I just couldn't.
Me too.
I couldn't get behind them.
Because I still remember, we're not going to trade OBJ.
Listen, he could have at least said, we'll take calls on anybody. Like, we'll consider trading anybody. And then when the trade happened, it wouldn't have hurt so bad. But it was the fact that he, just was so adamant to the fan base that they wouldn't trade him. And then he did. It was like, okay, now you're just kind of a scumbag. Like, you're actually like a piece of shit for that. Yeah, it wasn't cool. It was like how not to manage the PR for an NFL team 101.
Devastating.
I could cry right now again, man.
Literally, I feel like everybody just got super sad thinking about it.
Oh, man, I miss him so bad. I miss him so much.
I do too.
What I will say, though, is Ravens for a very long time have been like my number 2 team because one of my best friends growing up was a Ravens fan. And again, because of the Florida thing, I love Lamar Jackson. So when OBJ went to the Ravens, I was like, oh my God, this is dream scenario for me. Because this is like, if I'm not rooting for the Giants, I'm always rooting for the Ravens. So now I got extra reason to just go all the way in on the Ravens because of OBJ. So I'm like, I'm loving this season. The Ravens are good. I think they got a Super Bowl chance. And shit, I would love to see OBJ get a second ring.
Yeah, I would be happy. I'm upset Mark Andrews is out. That one hurt me. Just because, I don't know, I feel like that's a big loss for them. Not saying that it'll hurt them. I still feel like they're a good team, but losing Mark Andrews is
huge loss. Huge loss. But, you know, I think they can win it all without him, but he's a big loss for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, I think we're nearing our end here.
Yeah.
Well, we went into deep overtime. We went into like double overtime. Went into like Drake May versus Duke triple overtime.
That was Rockstar.
Yeah, it was. That was like a performance that tells you like, okay, he's a winner. He can be a first round, like top prospect. That was that performance for him. Every quarterback has to have that performance, but Again, which quarterback hasn't had that performance yet? Find that. That's how you'll find your bust.
I feel like you're
JJ
gonna keep me. All right, you know what?
McCarthy.
I just
Sorry.
okay. I'm not saying he's the best, and I feel like some people they get it twisted. It's just I watched JJ, and I feel like I see the growth in JJ. So it's just it's like a mom thing. It's like I'm happy to see him grow. That's how I feel about JJ McCarthy. I like seeing him grow. I honestly think it'll benefit if he stays with Michigan for another year. If Jim Harbaugh stays, I've been seeing that if Michigan does win the championship, that he'll probably stay another year, and I feel like that's important for him. I don't feel like he should declare this year. I feel like maybe take one more year with Jim Harbaugh and then see what happens.
See that mom thing that I like seeing him develop. I want to keep developing him thing. That's what's going to kill him, because you're going to have an NFL talent evaluator fall in love with him in the same light. Be like, oh man, I just love this kid. I want to see him develop, and then they're going to force it. And especially,
but he does get better though. That's what it is though. When you look at weaknesses from last season to this season, he does get better. And so
he improved on the coachable things that make him better now, but the uncoachable things that he's not able to improve on because it's physically impossible, he's never going to improve on. And that's the thing. You got things that are coachable about Caleb Williams that if he fixes, plus the other stuff that you can't teach, he's superstar. But JJ McCarthy has already fixed those things that are teachable and doesn't have those unteachable things. That's why he's not a first-round prospect to me. But again, the other point that I want to make is Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chicago Bears and they force it with JJ McCarthy. It's going to be ugly. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But that's why
JJ McCarthy only has 4 throws of 40-plus yards this year, by the way. Alabama has 17. I'm just saying.
Well,
there's so many stats that you can pull like that, though, for against JJ McCarthy, and that's why I just can't stand him. I'm like, if you want to build like the most disgusting narrative against this kid, it's so easy. It's too easy. Too easy.
Heartbroken.
All right, enough about these quarterbacks. Enough about the Giants. I'm sick of this. I'm gonna go watch a movie. So, all right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Much appreciated. Thank you all who left donations in particular. Really appreciate that. But really, thank you to everybody for watching us talk about the Giants, listening to us, commenting down below. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony_Rivardo. You can follow Allie at Amiable Allie. I don't know if Will's username is still accurate. I think he changed it once again.
No, that's my username.
At Will M. Cohen. Follow him on Twitter as well. Follow us, follow Fireside Giants, and of course, make sure to like if you did enjoy this live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss a live stream or an episode. And make sure if you're rewatching this the next day, comment your thoughts on the topics down below in the comment section. And we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Giants.
Let's go Giants.